It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I see issue with that. And again, hey.
You're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
I'm Ted Cruz, and my pronoun is kiss my ass.
So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put
Not good. Believe me, not good.
Hello, dissidents. Welcome, one and all, to a Tuesday matinee edition of the Do Dissidents podcast. Keaton Weiss here with Russell Dobular, of course.
Hello.
How is everybody doing on this dreary, cold, wet day? It's like London weather in New York.
Dude,
It's like England.
This happened. I was driving a horse and carriage at the time, so I was very conscious of the fact that we were getting screwed on business. There was a year that was like the year without a summer, where it was like this all the way into like mid-July, late July. It seems kind of like that's where this is going. Because I'm looking at even like later in the week, man, it's basically like 70s.
Yeah, it's the 10th. June 10th already.
It's supposed to be like
60s,
very summery.
70s all week. Yeah, low of 62 next week, a week from Thursday. So that's like late June already. Yeah. Pretty crazy. Yeah, no, I don't mind it. I like the cool weather. I don't like it when it's too hot. I don't like that. I'm wearing a hoodie. Look, I'm in a hoodie. Since when do I wear a hoodie in June?
Yeah.
Crazy.
I was going to do some of that there kayaking. I mean, I guess I still can. Just going to wait.
You still can. You get a few.
Wait until later in the season. Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, we got a nice crowd in here to start things off. 548 strong in the YouTube chat, 472 strong in the Rumble chat. We are homepaged on Rumble today, so thanks for that, Rumble. Appreciate that. And we got a lot to follow up on. Fun Jimmy Dore show last night. Jimmy sat in for most of the show from Dublin, so we hope you're feeling better. According to Jimmy's last tweet, he is feeling better. Pain has subsided. He's got a kidney stone. So he was up all night in Dublin with a kidney stone. That sounds like something like a poet would go through that, right? Up all night with Dublin, nursing a kidney stone pain. Oof.
Yeah, well, that's like chapter 3 of Ulysses, isn't it?
Yeah, right.
The whole kidney stone thing. Yeah, on the Rumble side, this is what's cool about Rumble. Like, you can do anything over there. He actually pulled the string out of his dick.
Yeah, right.
Right on the show. That was crazy, man.
That was crazy. Yeah. Oh, it was like making me hurt hearing him talk about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very visceral stuff. I'm surprised they didn't clip that when he was talking about it. I
told him. I
texted Andrew in the middle of the show. I said, "Hey, how many stories do we have?" He says 6. I'm like, that's where we are in the list. I'm like, "You sure you don't want to clip the kidney stone thing?" Get out of here a little early. Close shop a little early.
It was. It's funny with guys, man. Like, just telling a guy that kind of story about their junk, a guy will like instinctively wince.
Yeah. It's definitely tough. Definitely tough to take. All right, folks. Well, we are going to jump right in. Everybody smash that like button on the stream. We are at 172 on the like count in YouTube world. We are at 42 likes over on Rumble, so please smash that like button, smash that subscribe button, smash that follow button over on Rumble if you're here for the first time, as I trust many of you probably are. All right, we will jump right in. This was breaking today. CBS News had the exclusive. Conservative Senator Josh Hawley wants to raise the federal minimum wage. Missouri GOP Senator Josh Hawley plans to introduce legislation Tuesday to raise the federal minimum wage to $15 per hour a position that aligns one of the most conservative Republican lawmakers on Capitol Hill with some of the most liberal members of Congress. The legislation, called the Higher Wages for American Workers Act, would raise the federal standard starting in 2026 and would also call for an increase in subsequent years to match inflation, CBS News has exclusively learned. Vermont Democratic Senator Peter Welch has signed on as a co-sponsor. For decades, working Americans have seen their wages flatline. One major culprit of this is the failure of the federal minimum wage to keep up with the economic reality facing hardworking Americans every day, Hawley said in a statement to CBS News. This bipartisan legislation would ensure that workers across America benefit from higher wages. We're in the midst of a severe affordability crisis with families in red and blue states alike struggling to afford necessities like housing and groceries, Welch, the Democratic co-sponsor, of course, said in a statement to CBS. A stagnant federal minimum wage only adds fuel to the fire. Every hardworking American deserves a living wage that helps put a roof over their head and food on the table. $7.25 an hour doesn't even come close. So I actually learned about this from our friend Sabby's feed because she quote tweeted the Newswire headline, and she said, very smartly, I think, if this passes, Democrats won't look good at all. Yeah, this will be quite the humiliation for the Democratic Party if after 10 years of debating this topic and then promising to do it and then not doing it and blaming the parliamentarian and then losing to Donald Trump for a second time, it ends up being Josh Hawley, a Republican Senate, a Republican House, and Donald Trump who raise the minimum wage. Joe Paradise says $15 an hour is basically an industry standard in retail right now already. Why wouldn't the GOP let this pass and make the Democrats look like assholes? Who was president last time the federal minimum wage was passed? W. That's right. George W. Bush. But George W. Bush passed the federal minimum wage. He passed the minimum wage increase with a Democrat-controlled Congress because that was after 2006 when the Democrats, ran the table in the midterm. So they had both the Senate and the House. So, yes, it was a Republican president working with a Democrat-controlled Congress. If this passes, and that's a big, big if, obviously, because there's a lot of opposition to it within
you remember the Hellbots?
Yeah.
The Hellbots?
Oh, yeah.
15 is too much.
Yeah.
It's too much. You're going to bankrupt businesses.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So to his point, yes, W was the last
Hillary
president
wanted 12.
to do it. She wanted 12. Yeah. But W passed it with Democrat-controlled House and Congress. If Trump passes it with Republicans controlling both chambers, and like I said, that's a big if because there are a lot of hardliners who are going to have a hard time voting for this, but that would be just an unbelievable own. And they should. If they were smart, they would do it. They would obviously do it if they were smart.
Yes, I would be very, 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 very surprised.
Yeah. But, Hawley understands that this is good politics. Hawley seems to be one of the very few Republicans who understand that, hey, you can't just virtue signal to workers if you want to be a party of workers. You have to give them a win every once in a while. Otherwise, that coalition will not hold. And that's what he's thinking here. And his political understanding of this, I think, is spot on. I think the Republicans would be crazy not to do it. You'd be crazy not to do it. You're giving a little bit up, but look what you're getting in return. You are solidifying your grip on power if you put actual red meat solutions on the table for people. If you actually start passing policies that are pro-worker, then the Democrats are basically sunk. What is their answer to that? And this is part of why. David Weigel says, Biden-era mysteries. D gave up on getting minimum wage increase through Senate when parliamentarian blocked a $15 wage from reconciliation, i.e. doing it with 50 votes and not needing 10 Republicans. Just didn't propose a smaller wage increase. Stop talking about it. Let Josh Hawley steal a march on them. That's right. So here is a nice montage of the Democrats wishy-washy, at best, lying at worst, signaling on their desire to increase the minimum wage, complete with Joe Biden essentially saying, and it's not going to happen.
past time we have a $15 federal minimum wage.
It's long past time we pass a national $15 an hour minimum wage. I think it's long past time that there's a minimum wage of $15 an hour. It's long past time to be a $15 federal minimum wage.
$15 minimum wage. $15 minimum wage. And $15 million, $15,000.
Look how good he looks.
$15.
National minimum wage should be $15.
$15 an hour. $15 an hour.
$15 an hour. The hell are we arguing about a $15 minimum wage for?
$15 an hour minimum wage.
$15 should be a minimum wage, period.
$15 an hour. $15 an hour.
$15 an hour?
$15 an hour.
I do support a $15 minimum wage. A $15 minimum wage. A $15 minimum wage?
$15 minimum wage.
Why is it even a question?
One of the fights that I've been waging for a number of years now.
We all remember that
first
call.
day in Congress, I have been fighting to raise the minimum wage. $4.25 to $5.50. $5.15 to $7.25. You want to vote against the minimum wage? Have the guts to come up here.
It's been 10 years.
4 years ago, I was told raising the minimum wage too radical. Oh my God.
Going from $7.25 to $12 is a huge difference.
Oh, you want to more than double it. What are you smoking? 12 is not good enough. We need $15 an hour. Now, is that something, Joe, that you are supportive of?
Bernie, I am extremely supportive of it.
Did you, of course, support a $15 federal minimum wage?
I do. It's well past time. The minimum wage nationally be a minimum of $15. It's well past.
$15 an hour.
$15 an hour. $15 an hour. And minimum wage is a minimum.
Minimum wage of $15. People tell me that's going to be hard to pass. Florida just passed it. The recovery plan also calls for at least $15 an hour. Well, apparently that's not going to occur.
So you're saying the minimum wage won't be in this?
My guess is it will not be.
Vice President Kamala Harris, she could overrule the parliamentarian.
We'll let the process play out.
We're going to pass a national $15 an hour minimum wage. You all think I'm kidding, don't you?
I paid for right on. That was really well done. I don't know if Len Barra did that or if he just sourced that from somewhere, but assuming he did it since he tweeted it, that was really, really well done. After all that, to see, well, we'll let the process play out. Jen Psaki, that's the Democratic Party for you, right there.
Yep. My own father, who I've said before, he's like a character out of a Tom Waits song, who trains horses and lives at the track. The kind of guy who could really benefit from an increase in the minimum wage.
Right.
He's one of those MSNBC people, man. And I told him, well, what about the $15 minimum wage? He goes, the parliamentarian. Like, dude, you live in a fucking barn. You're talking about the parliamentarian. What the fuck? But that's how brainwashed they are, man. Like, they're so brainwashed into accepting these kinds of process arguments as somehow almost a religious argument. Like, these are the correct rituals, and we must not defy the rituals. That is what the evildoers of the other side do. They defy the rituals. Just absolutely ridiculous. And it's always obvious they fall back on process because they don't want to do it. They never wanted to do it. They need the process is their best friend. They need the parliamentarian to say no so that they can say, gosh darn it, we would have done it.
Right. Yes. And, who knows if Hawley feels like this has no chance of happening, and so he may as well put it up there to win over some favor with the base. Maybe this is because he knows that some version of this big, beautiful bill is going to pass that's going to cut Medicaid, and so he figures, well, hey, look, I went to bat for you guys and tried to raise the minimum wage. Who knows what he's thinking? But what he's saying is about as good politics as you could expect from a guy like Hawley, who has been on this page for years saying, like, look, we're becoming the party of the working class. We have to start demonstrating that we are that in our policies that we put forward. And if they do that, we've said this over and over again, if the Republicans actually pass some working class friendly policies, right? They don't even have to do a Medicare for all. They just do stuff like this. price controls on pharma, which Trump is trying to do. If they could do some of this, they will essentially solidify their grip on power and drive the Democrats into extinction. Because look at that montage that we just saw.
Right.
In addition, Hawley has the instinct to tweet out this today in response to that story breaking. Here's a simple proposal: more deportations for illegals and higher wages for Americans. See, he is rhetorically connecting deportations to economic empowerment for American workers. Now, I don't buy that. I don't think that this administration has any plans for that. We've made our position on that very, very well known over these past few months, obviously. But he's talking like that in ways that even Donald Trump is not. Notice the message out of the White House is just what we saw these past few days. This is essentially a crime and safety issue. The immigrants are scary. They're committing crimes. We have to get them out for your protection. They're not making an economic case for deportations. No. Hawley is trying to do that here. That is another connection that if the Republicans can make, their political fortunes will be quite bright. Will this happen? Just judging by the replies to the tweets, both in the CBS tweet, which broke the story, they had the first reporting on this, and tweets like this, you see a lot of pushback, a lot of people quoting Thomas Sowell. You got a lot of hardliners in the party who still are just like not going to go for it. Like there are still a lot of people out there whose orthodoxy still trumps any like political wisdom or instinct. It's something we don't hear much about nowadays because the past decade has been so tumultuous, where the party bases have really been in flux. The Democrats have gotten richer and whiter while calling the Republicans the party of white supremacists. Meanwhile, the Republicans have gotten more working class and more diverse. So there's been this real shifting of the terrain to a large extent. But the fundamental dynamics still say, and it's still true, that there are just probably at this point too many people in the Republican Party who are a no on this for it to happen. The question is, do Democrats give them the win? It's co-sponsored by a Democrat. So if they can get a few members of the Republican caucus to go along with it and all the Democrats vote yes, then they could pass it. But that's going to mean the Democrats voting to basically own themselves, which this is, again, what makes it so politically smart. Because what are the Democrats going to do? They're going to vote against the minimum wage? They've been, look at that montage. They've been saying they want to raise it for 20 years, since the last time it raised, 2007, and then it went into effect in 2009. They've been talking about for almost 20 years they want to raise it. Now they're going to vote no because Josh Hawley put it to the floor? So maybe Hawley figures, hey, I don't need even most of the caucus. If I get 10% of the Republican caucus, I force the Democrats' hand to vote for it. Put it as a clean minimum wage bill, one-time raise, plus a provision that it increases each year with according to inflation. If it's a clean bill, then the Democrats have no excuse to vote no. Maybe that's what he's thinking. But either way, those are good instincts. And yeah, this would be a huge embarrassment for the Democratic Party if this happens.
Yeah, these are some very tricksy hobbits. They will, if they need to, they'll stick an amendment on it that the Democrats can then call a poison pill and get rid of this. And, this goes, it degenerates into some kind of murky battle over amendments and additions and pork barrel things and give us a clean bill and blah, 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 blah. And then you never hear about it again. That would be my prediction.
Yep, that is a reasonable guess. That could certainly happen, like the South Park thing, right? And it's gone, right?
Yep.
Yeah, it could just disappear. But, you got commentators like Batyangar Sargon now who are on this page that the Republicans are now the party of workers. And it would take policies like this to actually, solidify that. And then you'd have to trust that Trump wouldn't veto.
Oh, it would be smart.
Yeah.
But this is the same party that is beating the bushes and grabbing old ladies on the street and holding them up by their ankles to shake them up and down for loose change in order to give a tax cut to people who do not need a tax cut, the richest people in society. So these are not people who think in terms of, our base is shifted. We have to do something for workers. Quite the opposite. So I don't see what would bring them there.
All right. Wiz Art, thanks for the €22. Appreciate that. Super sticker. Thank you very much. Angry Bird has a £50 donation. Let's give a cowbell to Angry Bird. Thanks, Angry Bird. Angry Bird says, hi, Keaton and Russell. Weather is wonderful today in Scotland. How are you? We are experiencing.
Is that an oxymoron?
Well, I was going to say our weather is probably yours. Our weather is probably about the same today. Was going to see Jimmy Dore on Glasgow tomorrow. Late. It's sold out. Oh dear. Maybe next time if DD are in town. Free Palestine. Yeah, we should do shows in Ireland, Scotland. That would be a lot of fun. And hey,
would you go?
If we booked shows there, if we did live shows there, yeah. But the problem is getting back. Maybe when I move there, we'll do shows there. Yeah. Angry Bird, hey, there's probably going to be, every night there's some no-shows. So I don't know what their policy is. I don't know if they'll let people in.
On the wait list?
If there's no
most
shows.
Most venues will have a wait list.
Yeah, most venues will have a wait list where they'll let you in if there are people who have tickets who don't show up, which there's always some people who don't show up. So, hey, if it's convenient, maybe try and wiggle your way in there. Kate, thanks for the $4.99. Please recommend the Dublin vegetarian restaurant called Cornucopia to JD. It's in Temple Bar. I go every time I visit. Healthy and good. All right, we'll pass that along. I will pass that along for sure. Charles H., thanks for the $5. Can you look into getting James Corbett for an interview to talk about these tech lords? Ask him about algocracy. All right, thank you for that recommendation. Appreciate that. It looks like on Monday, we're going to be hosting the Jimmy Dore Show on Monday. It looks like we have Feroz Sidwa, the Gaza doctor, is actually going to come on with us. So that's awesome. We can't wait for that. Victor Shakapopoulos says, I was kind of hoping the Freedom Flotilla would be joined by the orcas and the sharks, but I guess these things happen only in movies. Thank you, Victor. I was sure the Zio ghouls were going to give Greta's boat the USS Liberty treatment, but happy to be wrong. Maybe the Palestinians should use young autistic Swedish climate activists as human shields. Yes, thank you. Good one, Hillary Hitton. Appreciate that. Eric Rousseau, Dublin Kidney Stone. Isn't that a U2 song? Yeah, that's one of the B-sides. Thank you, Eric Rousseau. Appreciate that. Ari, kidney stone, allegedly 15 plus years ago, Cook County Jail had a guy who shoved a Q-tip up your dick. It made me shiver in holding. Ooh, yeah. Yeah. Next up, Republicans codify Roe. Also really looking forward to the Bill and Ted reboot starring Douglas Murray as Ted. Thank you, Hillary Hitton.
Now that you mention that, I was in a fucking jail in Monticello where they told me if I didn't get bailed out in like 24 hours, they were going to process me, and that was one of the things they were going to do.
Oh, yeah. Is that right?
Yep.
Wow.
Yep. Fortunately, I got the bail money up there in time.
There you go. Eric Rousseau, our politicians will get replaced by AI. Thank you, Eric Rousseau. Appreciate that very much. All right, let's move right on along here. We got some New York City politics to cover.
All right, Zohran Mamdani is having a very good month. We caught up with him about a month and a half ago at one of the Tesla protests, and I asked him the obvious thing for people in our corner of the universe. What do you say to people who have been disillusioned by the Bernie campaigns when you're running as a Democrat? This is what he said.
And a lot of people who came out of the Bernie movement, which a lot of our audience did, do not want anything to do with the Democratic Party. If you look at the polling, even with everything you just said about Cuomo, he's leading. You're behind Adams, I believe.
In second.
You're in second now?
Second place now as of a number of polls that came out last week. And I understand why people are frustrated with the Democratic Party, because it's a frustration born of a party that has often left the working class behind across the country. This campaign is a campaign to show that we can, in fact, empower working class New Yorkers through our policy, through our party. And what I am excited about is that as of now, while still being in that place, more than half of New Yorkers still don't know about our campaign. We're going to those over the next 3 months, and we're going to bridge that gap, and we're finding more people know about us, the more they support our campaign. I'm sorry, but I have to run. It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
I have an interview with Crackhead Barbie booked in 5 minutes.
Yes, like 5 minutes after that, he got chased for like 4 blocks by Crackhead Barbie. We have the whole stream up. You can find it on both Rumble and YouTube.
She calls herself that, by the way. That's not us making an insult.
We do, yeah,
she goes by Crackhead Barbie.
No. We're old friends. We run into her all over the place. We ran into her in Chicago. ran
Yes.
into her in Washington. Yeah, no, she's everywhere, that one. But hey, so at that time, he said he was already starting to pick up some momentum. And now he's within the margin of error. There's a plus or minus 3 points, so he's within 2 points. It's the statistical tie with Cuomo. Now, what's particularly remarkable about that, so it's 51-49 in the final round. We have ranked choice voting in New York City now. What's really remarkable is that that's in spite of the full court press the Zionists have been making against him, but we'll get into that. The demographics are kind of interesting because we think of the kind of conservatives as the white men. He's winning with men and he's winning with whites. So he's doing weakest actually with black voters, which is kind of remarkable. I don't know what they see in Andrew Cuomo. But yeah, Latinos, he's 10-point spread. Cuomo's winning in that demographic by 55. Black, he's got 72-28. Asian, 39-61. Mamdani's favor, perhaps not surprising, being South Asian himself. College educated, Mamdani 64 to Cuomo's 36. And very much this kind of reflects a Trump coalition. Andrew Cuomo, no college, 65 to Mamdani's 35. 45 plus, 67, Andrew Cuomo, 33, Mamdani. Under 45, 22, Cuomo, 78, Zohran Mamdani. And female, 54, Cuomo, 46, Mamdani. It's a little surprising given the background on Cuomo.
He's doing better with women than with men.
He's doing better with women. You would not have seen that coming. Now, Cuomo, I think one of the reasons that Mamdani could pull off an upset is very often in New York City, you have people who are basically Republicans who are registered as Democrats because Republicans have so little chance of winning an election in New York. So in order to have some influence over who the mayor is going to be, they're registered as Democrats. So they can vote in the Democratic primary. Cuomo is really, like, next to Joe Biden, probably the most despised figure to emerge out of COVID among conservatives, and not only conservatives, among many people, but conservatives in particular. I think that is a big part of why Mamdani is able to, at least in the polling, overcome the Zionist attacks on him, which, saying Israel cannot be a Jewish state in New York, that's considered pretty much a third rail in New York City politics. It's almost like saying it when you're running for prime minister of Israel, that you don't think it should be a Jewish state, to in New York say you don't think it should be a Jewish state. But this got a lot of play. This is our own tweet of it from the debate last week, where Mamdani first made headlines by refusing to bend the knee. Now, this is the full cut that we did. 4 out of 9 candidates said their first foreign trip would be to Israel.
You go first. Left to right, Ms. Adams.
First visit, I would visit the Holy Land.
Mr. Cuomo?
Given the hostility and the anti-Semitism that has been shown in New York, I would go to Israel.
Mr. Tilson, where would you go?
Yeah, I'd make my 4th trip to Israel, followed by my 5th trip to Ukraine, 2 of our greatest allies fighting on the front lines of the global war on terror.
Mr. Mamdani?
I would stay in New York City. My plans are to address New Yorkers across the 5 boroughs and focus on that.
Mr. Mamdani, can I just jump in? Would you visit Israel as mayor?
I will be doing, as the mayor, I'll be standing up for Jewish New Yorkers, and I'll be meeting them wherever they are across the 5 boroughs, whether that's in their synagogues and temples or at their homes or at the subway platform. Because ultimately, we need to focus on delivering on their concerns.
And just yes or no, do you believe in a Jewish state of Israel?
I believe Israel has the right to exist.
Not
as a Jewish state?
As a state with equal rights.
He won't.
Okay.
He
Not
won't
as a
say it
Jewish
has a
state.
right to
No,
exist
No,
as a
he
Jewish
not as a
state.
Jewish
Be very
state. He
His
believes
answer
in
was
equal
no,
rights.
he won't visit Israel.
I said that.
That's what he was trying to say.
No. Unlike
No,
you, I
you
answer.
never-
Unlike
you
you, I
never
answer
said
questions
no.
very
Okay.
directly,
All right,
and I
we're
want to
clear.
be
You
very
answered-
clear. I believe every state should be a state of equal rights.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mamdani. Mr.
We're all against
right,
equal rights.
Oh, I'm sorry.
My goal would be to take my first trip to Israel. My wife's life work in this area means a lot to our family, and it could coincide with my young son Miles' bar mitzvah, if you'd like to have his bar mitzvah.
Okay, about a minute.
Clavin. Yeah. So, okay. That was pretty remarkable to see a guy running for mayor of New York who didn't go the safe, so-called liberal position. Yes, I believe in a two-state solution. That would have been the easy way out of that question. So did he back off in the days after? No, not at all. He went on Good Day New York, and he was asked about this, and he reiterated that position.
Like you, did not want to make a definitive statement on this. Do you support Israel's right to exist as a Jewish state?
I support Israel's right to exist as a state with equal rights. I believe that every
Why
state...
not as a Jewish state?
Because I'm not comfortable supporting any state that has a hierarchy of citizenship on the basis of religion or anything else. I think that in the way that we have in this country, equality should be enshrined in every country in the world. That's my belief.
All right, let's talk.
I would love to watch someone just turn it back on the reporter and just say, and why don't you believe it in that? What is wrong with what I just said? What is your objection, whoever asked me that question, to equal rights? Why are you against equal rights? That's who deserves to be interrogated, the people who are against equal rights.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So they had...
This is why I can't run for office, because I would get kicked off of every show and never allowed back in.
Maybe not. Look, he's doing all right.
Yeah, because he didn't do what I would have done.
He definitely has a conciliatory tone. So he there was a round table talk back at a Jewish synagogue, at a pretty well-known old Jewish synagogue here in New York. And this is a good example of the Zionist apoplexy about this. New York City mayoral candidate Zohran Mamdani announced a plan to ignore state and federal law in order to enact BDS and enforce ICC to comply with international law. If your hatred for Israel is more important than following American law, you shouldn't be elected to public office. All right, so we're not going to play the whole thing, but towards the tail end, he addresses the question of whether he would arrest Netanyahu, and he also talks a little bit about his support for BDS.
Question around Benjamin Netanyahu. I was asked what I would do after he had just been issued an arrest warrant by the International Court of Justice. My answer is the same whether we are speaking about Vladimir Putin or Netanyahu. I think that this should be a city in compliance with international law. And we have seen other countries across the world who are signatories to the ICC state that they would honor that same request, be it Canada or other countries in Europe. And their honoring of it meant that Netanyahu did not travel there. And I think it is important to show leadership in a time when it is sorely missing. And there are some who may say that the United States is not a party to the International Criminal Court. Thank you, Whitney. I knew you were going there. And to that I say that there are times when courage is required. There was a time when it was not legal for same-sex couples to be married in this country. And still, then Mayor Gavin Newsom issued marriage certificates for those very couples in defiance of that legislation.
Now I got to say, in the shit-lib homeworld of New York, throwing that back at them is a very smart tactic.
What I am trying to showcase is a belief that international law is something that should be honored, should be respected, and something that we should actually bring our city into compliance with.
And just to be very, very clear, so yes, you will continue to support the boycott of Israel as...
I can't hear you.
I said, yeah, just to be very, very clear. So yes, you will continue to support the boycott of Israel if you are elected mayor.
What I would do is ensure that any of my actions moving... Sorry. Let me know when you... That any of my actions moving forward as the mayor of New York City would not be in violation of any of those international laws, and ensure that compliance is at the heart of it. That's all I would focus on.
Mr. Wall.
Okay, pretty based answers, I must say. Now, this is how out of touch the libs are with the general society. Although, given that this is the shitlib homeworld, maybe this plays for them. Yes, it's shocking, but Zohran Mamdani indeed called Barack Obama a liar and evil, which is why he can't deny it. Cuomo brought this up at the debate. So Mamdani tweeted out, this is the New York Post, did a story about this. I can't trust quotes from Barack Obama, not since his continued lying in the face of Snowden's NSA revelations. So beyond Israel, yeah, some pretty interesting economic policies, some I've never heard before. The free public transportation. He's not the first to propose this. Apparently, I didn't even know this. We subsidize supermarkets, and he's proposing making supermarkets and grocery stores public so that they won't have any overhead on land. They won't be paying any rent, and they'll be able to bring down the price of food. It's an interesting proposal. So he was asked what progressives are always asked. Nobody's ever asked how you're going to pay for bombs, how are you going to pay for military, but progressives are always asked how you're going to pay for public goods. So this was his answer.
Some of the things I've heard that are part of your platform: a rent freeze.
Yep.
200,000 new affordable homes to build.
There we go.
$30 minimum wage by 2030. Free buses. And then city-owned grocery stores. I'm just wondering, because obviously, like, politicians are liars. So
true.
How can we trust that these things are achievable?
So these are all things that are a question of political will. Because most politicians will try and tell us that anytime you want to stand up for working class people, it's unrealistic. And when we're talking about a rent freeze, Bill de Blasio did that 3 times. There's precedence for that. When we're talking about city-run grocery stores, that pilot program, which would guarantee lower prices for milk, for eggs, for bread, for the staples of day-to-day life, would cost $60 million. The city is currently set to spend more than $140 million to give it to corporate supermarkets. So this would be a fraction of what we're already set to spend. When we're talking about free buses and universal childcare, that is something that we could pay for entirely by raising New York State's corporate tax rate to match the socialist utopia of New Jersey. So that's 7.25% here to 11.5% there. 200,000 affordable homes. We can pay for this by municipal bonding. We can pay for this by using vouchers that landlords are rejecting for New Yorkers that are already approved. We can pay for this by using vacant city lots that we have. And we're already paying for this in some way because our refusal to build actually affordable housing, like for a family of 4 making $72K a year, for a low-income senior, for one of the 100,000 New Yorkers living in shelters, it is pushing working class people outside of the city. It is pushing them into tax bases of New Jersey and Pennsylvania. We need to stop doing that and actually keep people in the city they call home.
Now, one of our viewers called my attention to this because I've said with Mamdani, he's remarkably polished for a politician who has not really been playing at a high level of the game for very long. But he has a pretty interesting pedigree. NYC mayoral candidate Zohran Mamdani's father, Columbia professor Mahmoud Mamdani, played a visible role in the university's pro-Hamas encampments. Zionist account, obviously. He called for Israel's dismantlement and compared Israelis to Nazis. Okay, based. His mother is a pretty successful film director. She directed Mississippi Masala. So just interesting fun fact. Now, he is definitely benefiting from the fact that he's running against Andrew Cuomo. Landlord lobby will boost Cuomo with $2.5 million spend. He's already at the kind of corruption that we associate with Andrew Cuomo. Cuomo Super PAC got $2.7 million boost from donors who have business before the city. Okay, so New York campaign finance laws, if you have business before the city, which pretty much any real estate developer always has business before the city, you can only give $400 to a campaign, but we have our own versions of super PACs. so they're giving the money to the super PACs. Very often they're giving Cuomo the $400 on the same day that they then put millions of dollars into his super PAC, which is not technically illegal, but you're not allowed to coordinate, very much like at the federal level. Looks pretty coordinated. So if you look at who's giving money to his super PAC, Fix the City, real estate is the largest, over 28%, finance 22%. The ride delivery apps, Keaton will have a little bit on that later in the show, over 9. Unions, very small amount, a little over 6%. So this is the usual coalition of corrupt interests that would support Cuomo. So really, Mamdani could not have a better foil to run against. If he was going to have a chance at winning a Democratic primary, you could not find a better rival than Andrew Cuomo for his brand. So he was endorsed, as you probably know, by AOC. They put out an ad. This is the Puerto Rico Day Parade, which we have every year.
Puerto Rico no se vende. No se vende. Puerto Rico no se vende. Puerto Rico no se vende. Hello, everyone. This is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and I am here loud and proud to rank Zohran Mamdani #1 for mayor of New York City. Early voting starts on June 14th. The primary election is June 24th. So early vote, fill out your ballots, and make sure that you do not rank Andrew Cuomo on your ballot. Don't do it, folks. We are going to rank our ballot Zohran #1 for a New York City that can be affordable to all of us.
All right. Now, to be clear, I was not crazy about the way that Mamdani answered that question about the Bernie coalition. I think it was very much a politician's answer. He, kind of nodded to it and then pivoted. And, stuff like that does not thrill me. Definitely getting DSA vibes there. That having been that, you're muted.
Sorry, I was going to say I think he's a member of DSA. I know he's backed by DSA. I think he is a member though.
Is he actually a member of DSA?
So.
Oh yeah. He is. Yeah. He is, because actually somebody was pointing out DSA forbids their members from going to Israel. Somebody was arguing, well, he couldn't go to Israel if he is going to stay a member of DSA. So yeah, man, I can't really say you're a politician trying to get votes. Emma Vigeland shows up. You tell her, I can't take a picture with you. But at the same time, I think he is probably more in that lane than in any kind of, real radical leftist position, which means what happens when he gets into office? Oh, the usual, I would have, but this thing happened and these people blocked me and that. That having been said, he gained a lot of respect from me as a native New Yorker, taking that position on Israel and not wavering from it. That is a tough position to take in New York City. Even, we talked about it a little bit, strategically, he might have felt like, well, that's my lane. That's my path. I'm not going to out-Zionist these people, so I might as well go in the other direction. New York City, even that is a very tactically risky gambit. So, when you look at these people, they're professional politicians, you always have to ask yourself, how much do they mean it? How much is he just saying, well, my path is on the back of the progressive movement. That's the only movement where I might be able to generate enough enthusiasm to pull an upset. I'm too much of an outsider to go through the establishment lane and actually win. I can only win as an insurgent, so I might as well just completely commit to the ideology of insurgency. I think it's probably some of both. I think given the background of his parentage, I think he probably does have these radical beliefs. He's also pretty slick and he's pretty political if you watch how he handles himself. All that to say, yeah, man, I'll vote for him in the primary. He's got my vote. The position he took, I am officially endorsing Zohran Mamdani.
There you go. Yeah, there you go. Russell Dobular.
I made
Zohran
news.
Mamdani. Yes,
and that's it. Now his poll numbers are gonna go.
Yeah, that's it. That's
gonna
the
get
boost
the due dissidence bump
that he needed. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
with reservations, but I live in New York. I will vote for him in the primary.
Well, the Israel issue, just to give people an idea of how toxic that can be in New York City politics, that is what sunk Andrew Yang. When you remember in 2021, Andrew Yang was running for mayor. He was polling very well. Obviously, the primary is in June. In May of 2021 is when the last major flare-up of violence in Palestine took place. Andrew Yang put out a statement supporting Israel. A lot of the progressives who were backing him got mad at him. And so he waffled on that and sort of, moderated, which of course pissed off the Israel supporters, and it wasn't enough for the people who were pissed at him. And what happens? His support just imploded. Right. It could be a very, very toxic issue for a New York politician. And I think, in this moment, obviously he realizes this is his horse. If he has the pro-Palestine people behind him, you just got to go all in on that and hope that there's enough there to get you over the line. Now, if there is enough there to get him over the line in the primary, which is a possibility at this point, obviously, and it's a possibility I did not anticipate, just given the Democratic primary voter base's track record of just miserable choice after miserable choice, combined with the fact that in New York City it's much worse than in the average place, and in the average place it's quite bad. I still say if he wins the primary, Cuomo runs, and it's a four-way race, at which point he becomes the underdog once again. So it is a long, long, long road to City Hall for him. A lot has to go his way, both in the primary and in the general, where I expect Andrew Cuomo will stay in, even if he comes up short in the primary, because then it's a four-way race. At that point, fucking Eric Adams even has a shot, because the Republicans may figure, you know what? If the liberals are going to split between Cuomo and Mamdani, what's the point in voting for a Republican who has no chance? Eric Adams becomes the de facto Republican in the race. Imagine at the end of all this, he gets reelected. Imagine that.
That would be a very New York
Eric
ending,
Adams
frankly.
gets reelected after all this.
But you could look at it another way. Adams and Cuomo could split the shitlib vote, and that could advantage Mamdani.
Yeah, the only problem with that theory
But
is
then
that...
again, you want a funny outcome. That could end up with Sliwa.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Because you basically got this three-way split among the Democratic coalition at that point.
I mean, yeah, it is interesting. And in that scenario, anything is possible, because now all of a sudden, whoever gets 30 is likely to win. It's not a race to 50. It's a race to pretty much 25 or 30 at that point. So, it would be pretty crazy. But, yeah, man, the Buffalo primary a few years back was a lesson in what happens when the Democratic establishment candidate loses. They just run as an independent. They're not loyal to the party. They're just loyal to their own power and their own, self-interest. And so, the party is usually a vessel through which they can pursue that. If that becomes a dead end, they'll just go independent. And I suspect that might very well happen. Now, the interesting question, we haven't asked this question, is what if Mamdani comes up a few points short in the primary? Does he run as an independent? Like as long as it's close, he could stay in.
Okay,
now, he doesn't have the money.
I
that
don't
Cuomo
think
has.
so, because that's where I read him as an AOC. I don't think he crosses the party like that. I don't think he does.
Well, that would be interesting.
I don't think he's as radical as he pretends. I think he is probably more radical than some of the people who pretend to progressivism legitimately. But I think he works the angles, man. That guy's a professional politician. He handles himself that way. He reads that way. I don't think he really goes at the party like that.
Well, that's the interesting question, because if Cuomo loses, I think Cuomo will. And we already know what happened in Buffalo.
You
Byron
can
Brown
you
did.
Yeah, you
right?
can get away with that shit if
Yeah.
you are good with the establishment. If
Yeah.
you do that as an actual insurgent outsider, they will never fucking forgive you for that.
Yeah.
One element to this, I think, that's worth examining in terms of why he's surging like this. New York, and particularly Manhattan, is unusually youth oriented. The pace of it, the way that it's laid out, it's really not good for families. So people, when they get married and they start having kids, they tend to leave.
Right.
So I think part of what's happening here is, yeah, man, I mean, the younger generation is pro-Palestine. They're more progressive. And I think they probably have more of a numerical presence than they would in most cities. I think New York probably skews under 45 more than most places in America.
Yes, that is true. That is definitely true. And that is definitely something else that creates an opportunity for him. The vote is 2 weeks from today. So we'll probably be live that night, I would imagine, covering the results. Why not?
Yeah.
All right, cool. Bustello Maserati says, Azteca, thank you with those 2 Mexican flags. Appreciate that. Fat, not so fat. Debt bomb crisis shorting U.S. treasuries is like having Hunter Biden no-show job printing money has consequences. FYI, BlackRock wrote COVID relief bill. Thank you, Fat, not so fat. Shane the Pain, thanks for the $10. $15 an hour. You crazy? F the plebs. PSDD is great. Thanks for making the news palatable. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Steph says, crowd query, need an anti-Zionist optometrist. Oh, really? Your optometrist is an Israel guy? All right. Anybody in the chat in New York knows, I don't know why that issue would come up at your eye doctors, but if you know anybody, recommend it. Charles H., thanks for the $2. I want an AI worst Biden to be president. Yes. Fat, not so fat says, just for people in the chat, TLT puts baby. All right. That's between you and the chat, my friend, as you said. Nocturnal Human says, when they raise the wages, that means they're ready to automate the jobs. There you go. AI is going to get all the jobs. It's the Trump WEF plan. Good point, Nocturnal Human. That Joe Biden's got spunk. I'm telling you, he would very well be president someday. Kid's got moxie. That's right. Eric Husso says, buy the new Palantir AI sex robot. There you go. Thanks, Eric Husso.
Oh, it's coming.
Saw Trump's Tesla listed on eBay. Cancer sucks. You guys rock. Thank you, Vito. Appreciate that very, very much. Okay. All right. We will move right on along here to segment number 3. Okay. Some updates from L.A., from Los Angeles. So United States Northern Command confirms 2nd Battalion, 7th Marines are preparing to deploy to Los Angeles, California to anti-ICE riots. Additional 2,000 more National Guard troops coming. Mic drop, Trump and Hegseth. Impeach Gavin. Deport L.A. police. Look armed now. Arrest all. That guy's very excited. Here is some footage of the militarized police presence in Los Angeles yesterday. There they are. To protect and serve. You might remember in the 50s, you used to see the cartoons of the little kid going up to the friendly neighborhood policeman. And now you look at how the cops are depicted. I saw a meme about that, the evolution of the cops as they relate to the community.
Yeah, I saw that.
There they go.
Didn't they have a meme of that showed how the Lego cop evolved?
Yeah, it was a Lego cop. I think that was, yes.
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
It was definitely, they did a Lego version as well. Yep, that was pretty clever. So there they come. That is quite the caravan on its way to Los Angeles. CNN had the report. Breaking news from the Pentagon. CNN can now report roughly 500 Marines are being mobilized in response to the LA protests.
From the Pentagon, CNN can now report that roughly 500 Marines are being mobilized in response to the protests in Los Angeles.
And this is a significant escalation from President Trump, who had activated National Guard troops over the weekend without Governor Gavin Newsom's consent. In this new move, active duty military members are being deployed as a show of force against U.S. citizens. CNN's Natasha Bertrand is live for us at the Pentagon. Natasha, what are you learning?
Well, Brianna, this is something that Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth had previewed over the weekend. He said that if necessary, he would deploy the Marines to Los Angeles to
Cannot
help
be reached for
federal
comment
agents.
at the moment. He's singing Sweet Caroline in the bathroom with the door locked. We can't seem to get him out. Must have had a long night.
With handling the protests there, and it appears now that these Marines, according to our sources, they have been mobilized. These 500 Marines, a full Marine battalion based out of 29 Palms, California, which is just outside San Bernardino, about an hour away from Los Angeles. They have been mobilized and they are gearing up to go and help ICE agents as well as other federal officials deal with these protests in Los Angeles. Importantly, they're going to be bolstering as well the National Guard, guardsmen and women who have been activated in Los Angeles by President Trump. But as you said, it is a significant escalation of the president's use of the military as a show of force against these protesters. It's really not clear, the last time Marines were deployed to help essentially with riot control, though it's unclear at this point just what their actual tasking will be. Typically, if they are deployed to these situations, it is expected that they will operate in much the same way that the National Guard does, doing things like perimeter security, maybe some crowd control. But the rules of engagement here, we are told, are still being finalized, and Defense Department lawyers are also looking at the kinds of rules of engagement these Marines will have as they encounter protesters, possibly on the streets of Los Angeles. But again, this coming at a very, very tense moment with the governor of California suing the Trump administration over, of course, the deployment of the National Guard by President Trump against his will there in California.
Right.
And
So Newsom announced that lawsuit before Trump then escalated by sending in the Marines. So the LA Times had some footage on the highway outside of Los Angeles in that Eastern California desert. Here they are on their way to LA. Reuters has the report. Marines arrive in L.A. under Trump orders as protests spread to other cities. This came out today. Hundreds of U.S. Marines arrived in Los Angeles overnight, and more were expected on Tuesday under orders from President Donald Trump, who has also activated 4,000 National Guard troops to quell protests despite objections from California Governor Gavin Newsom and other local leaders. The city has seen days of public outrage since the Trump administration launched a series of immigration raids on Friday, though local officials said the demonstrations on Monday were largely peaceful. About half of the roughly 700 Marines that Trump ordered to Los Angeles arrived on Monday night, and the remaining troops will enter the city on Tuesday, a U.S. official told Reuters. The U.S. military did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Trump has justified his decision to deploy active military troops to Los Angeles by describing the protests as a violent occupation of the city, a characterization that Newsom and Bass have said is grossly exaggerated. Newsom said that Trump's deployment of National Guard troops has only inflamed the situation and made it more difficult for local law enforcement to respond to the demonstrations. In a statement on Monday, Los Angeles Police Chief Jim McConnell said the department had not been notified any Marines were traveling to the city and that their possible arrival presents a significant logistical and operational challenge for police. Trump's decision to mobilize 700 Marines based in Southern California escalated his confrontation with Newsom, who filed a lawsuit on Monday asserting that Trump's deployment of Guard troops without the governor's consent was illegal. The Guard deployment was the first time in decades that a president activated the Guard absent a request from a sitting governor. The top Democrat on the Senate Armed Services Committee, Senator Jack Reed, said he was gravely troubled by Trump's deployment of active duty Marines. Since our nation's founding, the American people have been perfectly clear. We do not want the military conducting law enforcement on U.S. soil. That is the key part of this. And this is, I've said this a lot these past few days between hosting here and hosting for Jimmy. We've done a lot of talking about this topic. This is, I won't say the end result, but as we talked about on Jimmy's show last night with Jimmy there, he made the point, this feels like the end result of a decades-long process that started shortly after 9/11 to basically transfer responsibilities from the Department of Justice to this newly formed Department of Homeland Security, where rules of engagement are different, standards of evidence are different, threshold of guilt is different. That's what the Patriot Act is. That combined with this private-public partnership where you get companies like Palantir involved in data consolidation, gathering, surveillance. Yeah, you're bringing this under the authority of the military. You're taking it out of the world of crime and punishment and criminal justice and into the world of militarism and military tribunals and military justice. It is a very significant and, yes, dangerous escalation in terms of how you approach these issues, whether it's protests, whether it's riots, when you start detaining people, when you start arresting people. The fact that the executive is taking such control over this, like I said, that is a significant step up, and it is no joke. So in a post on Tuesday morning on Truth Social, Trump claimed Los Angeles would be burning to the ground right now if he had not deployed troops to the city. Okay, what's crazy about that is that the riots have not stopped. They haven't gotten things under control.
Right.
Things have gotten worse. Like, you could tell the effectiveness of a strategy by the result it yields. And in this case, the result it yields has just been ongoing chaos. So you either have to, at that point, say that the strategy was a failure, or, much more likely, in my opinion, this is the strategy. The strategy is to amp up the militaristic presence on the ground, and with that, invite more chaos, which then in turn allows you to bring in more troops. Oh, there's protests. Now there's riots. The police aren't doing enough. So now we're going to bring in the National Guard. Then there's more riots. Well, the National Guard can't handle it. Now we have to send in the Marines, right? It has just been a pattern of escalation. None of these measures have actually created calm and order. Yet they go out and they claim that anyway. Protests spread to neighboring Orange County on Monday night after immigration raids there, with demonstrators gathering at the Santa Ana Federal Building, according to local officials and news reports. Protests also sprang up in at least 9 other U.S. cities on Monday, including New York, Philadelphia, and San Francisco, according to local news reports. In Austin, Texas, police fired non-lethal munitions and detained several people as they clashed with a crowd of several hundred protesters. Now, what is the price tag on this response in LA alone? Just breaking before the show, $134 million. Elon be very displeased to hear that number. Now, you have to ask, okay, that's a lot of money. How much will it cost if they escalate similarly in cities around the country, which they may have to do because these protests are spreading. So here's one in Houston. Here's one in Dallas. This is just some, I guess, overhead footage with no sound, but crowds gathering in the streets in Dallas, Texas. We know, obviously, there were protests in New York City as well going on alongside the L.A. protests, which did not get much press. They were kind of upstaged by the L.A. protests, but here's some of that near Federal Plaza.
And here you go.
Philadelphia had their protests as well. No video for that one, but we do have some video for the San Francisco march. So here is San Francisco marching against ICE. So as you could see there, in all of these sort of sister protests, if you want to call them that, although they are kind of part of the same protest movement, I would argue, vast majority of these protests are nonviolent, just like I'm sure if you pin a point on the map, the vast majority of the LA protests were nonviolent as well. And I've said over and over again, we don't have to exhaust this point. Newsom and Bass do themselves no favors by insisting that they have things under control as images and videos disseminate online of cars burning and, gas stations being looted. Recent polling has Trump polling around 50% on the immigration issue, which gives him a strong hand to play when he makes these escalatory moves. But these are escalatory moves, and you have to ask yourself, okay, if they're deploying the military to Los Angeles, what happens if these protests do spread to all these cities throughout the country? You know, Trump has been asked about the prospect of civil war, and of course they're downplaying that. But you are creating a situation where you're having very tense standoffs between the military and the public. And if, God forbid, these things do turn violent and you have a situation where the military is killing its own citizens on its own soil, yeah, that can get very, very dark and very dangerous very quickly. And we obviously hope to God it does not come to that. But you have to ask yourself, if these protests spread, if ICE continues escalating its raids and its operations, which they're saying they're going to, then yeah, you are creating a very, very volatile situation where things can get bad very quickly. And assuming they don't get bad in that way, which we obviously hope to God they don't, $134 million over the past couple of days. So what happens if they start having to make these moves in cities throughout the country? What's the price tag on this going to be? When are people who voted for this, shoot it into my veins, this is when I voted for, when are people who made that decision and who are so proud of what they're seeing right now in terms of the government response, when are they going to take a step back and say, hey, wait a minute, look at all this. Is this all worth it? Is this worth it? For what? Don't forget, they arrested just over 100 undocumented immigrants in Los Angeles over the weekend. It's not like they rounded up 3,000, 4,000 people, 100 people. All this for 100 people. So at what point is the juice not worth the squeeze to the majority of people? That remains an open question, because the really unfortunate part of this, and the thing that makes this very complicated and very unpredictable, is that when Trump says, hey, I ran on this, I won on this, I have a mandate to do this, he's not lying. Like, he is right about that. And so at a certain point, you have to say the country kind of made its bed.
Yeah. This, like many other things, is not what it's purported to be, which we will see when we get into Palantir. This is not about immigrants. This is about restructuring society into a dystopian police state with a feudal economic system where a few tech overlords have total control over your personal information and are able to push a button and wipe you out with the full force of the government in 5 seconds. Now, you are seeing within the MAGA conversation, you are seeing some people who are wise to it, who are speaking out against it, who are literally saying, I'm not taking the bait on the LA riots, on immigration. My eyes are on Palantir. You are getting people from that corner of the world who are saying that. You also have a lot who are taking that bait, who think this is about immigration. And that is easy to do in a society where, for a lot of the population, the economic prospects are slim. And I would argue for the population in general, the culture is toxic. So when the culture is toxic and doesn't offer any sense of meaning, of purpose, of community, that makes a lot of people very vulnerable to the illusion of those things. I'm part of a movement. We're going to get those people out. And you know what? A lot of people click the like button on my posts when I scream about how much I hate those people.
Right.
So I'm going to say it again.
Right.
And a lot of the people who are driving that conversation, as we will see, they're getting paid, man. They're getting paid. I'm going to prove it to you. Some very high profile accounts. You remember that video of all the news anchors saying the same thing? I'm going to show you some of your favorite conservative commentators, MAGA commentators, all saying the same thing. It's all bullshit. It's all bullshit. They realized they couldn't sell it the Kamala way. They're selling it the Trump way in order to neutralize enough of the Second Amendment. I'm going to storm the Capitol. If you keep pushing in this direction, they neutralize those people and get them on their side. Yeah, get those immigrants out. That's it. That's the whole point, man. Yo, pack of ketchup on the ear. Boom. Bought them the New World Order.
Well, yeah. I mean, look, yes, and you know, I don't disagree with any of that, but that's largely my point. Is that because so many of these people have been psyoped in this way. Trump's polling on immigration creates space for him to do this. Sure. It just does.
Well, it's the only thing that creates that space. That's why they're doing it this way.
But
there's no other way they could do it.
It's there. And when you want to take a step back, you know, there was CNN just did a segment that in 2000, I believe it was 2015. I might be getting that date wrong. I don't know what the first date was, but it was either late aughts or early to mid 2010s, sometime during the Obama years. The Democrats had a 32-point edge on the immigration issue. Now the Republicans have an 8-point edge on the immigration issue. And that is what allowed for this to happen. So then you have to ask yourself, okay, why did border crossings go up under Joe Biden? Was it to destabilize the labor market? Maybe. I mean, that seemed like a reasonable hypothesis at the time. Then again, these guys don't seem keen on undoing that, so that kind of makes you think a second time. And when you think a second time, hey, maybe they needed to manipulate the border situation in order to usher in Donald Trump, to get the $1 billion to Palantir. Because, as we've said, there was just not going to be any tolerance for this if you did this alongside transgender sports. But, man, Americans are an easy date, huh? Just give them their varsity girls sports and they'll let you do whatever you want. That's basically how this happened. Yeah. And here you are, Marines in L.A. All right. Let's see. What do we got here? Do we have to do the ad yet? No, we're going to do that after this next one. Okay. Kit's Corner says, apologies for the wildfire smoke from Canada. Just Mark Carney burning his business receipts. Things got out of control. Haha, good one. All seriousness, look at Bill C2 here. It's the Palantir of the North. Oh, interesting. I will look at that. Interested in that. Damon Wolf, thanks for the $10. Hey, guys, remember when we used to say the surveillance state sucks, but at least we never have to worry about our troops turning on us? Good times, free Palestine. Good one. Yes, indeed. Absolutely.
It's almost like, in addition to having every ecosystem in North America, we're working on having every version of dystopian science fiction.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
You know, you've got the Brave New World version in one city. You've got a very 1984 version in another city. It's kind of Escape from the Planet of the Apes in another city.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Got all the bases covered. My cousin showed me a pic on her phone once, and of course I scrolled and found a pic of a dick with 2 Q-tips up there, and the next pic was a foreskin with a battery inside it. She denied knowledge. Thank you, Furrows Queen. Kids Corner, Mamdani would be main protagonist if Stephen King's Children of the Kanish came looking for him. Thank you, Kids Corner. Appreciate that very much. Let's see here. Wouldn't let me spell Z word, says Steph. I find that not a surprise. Anti-Z app for that matter for professionals. Yeah, there you go. That's an idea. Shane the Pain, thanks for the $10, says seems like it's a stain now. Siding with I don't know what siding with I don't understand what that is. You spelled that in code, but that is beyond me. Exclamation point ZUREE1. I don't know what that means. Sorry, but it drops your ratings while fighting. It lifts your polls. Oh, Israel. There you go. All right, that is a clever spelling of that. Gotcha. Sorry about that. The Uppies. It's a lib take to say I like Mamdani. I just don't like that he's running as a Dem. I feel like he's the Bernie Sanders lane, a bad and good thing. Bad and good thing. Well, yeah.
I mean, even if you dig into his polling demos, it's very much a Bernie kind of a coalition.
Yeah, for sure. I think if Mamdani's mom is Mira Nair, he may be as radical as he seems, but I still don't trust Dems. Is that his
Yes. Mother? His mother is the director of Mississippi Masala, and I think Monsoon Wedding also.
Oh, wow. That's crazy. Wait a minute. So that's...
Do you actually watch my segments? Do you watch them?
No, but you didn't say what. You didn't say your name. You just said his...
No. I just, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you said her. Yeah,
You're
said
right.
she was the director of the film, but I didn't know that was Mira Nair. It is Mira Nair. See, I knew the name Mira Nair, but I had never heard of that movie. Oh, so his mother is Mira Nair. That's cool. All right, I like him more already. That's cool. That's based. All right, see, I wish I knew that. I didn't know she made that movie. I just knew what you said, she was a filmmaker. That's interesting. Hey, did you know Christian Bale's mother is who's Christian Bale's mother? He's got a famous
Does he?
Yeah. Oh, you don't know this?
No.
You don't know who Christian Bale's mother is?
No.
Christian Bale's mother. Wait a minute. Maybe am I wrong about that? Oh, yeah, no. Maybe I'm wrong. Anyway, I'll look it up. I don't want to. I thought Christian Bale had a famous mother. No, I guess not. No, I guess I had that wrong. All right, that was anticlimactic.
Truth is, I spent a very memorable evening with Christian Bale's mother one time.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
That's it. We're never getting him on the show now.
Yeah. Sean Brock, we need global working class solidarity. Capitalists have global solidarity. That's why your town and factory moved to Taiwan. Workers' power is in numbers, 100%. Absolutely correct. Thank you very much for that. All right, we can move right on to Greta. Got some news on the Greta front.
Okay. Greta Thunberg deported from Israel after its military intercepts Gaza-bound aid boat. Adala, the legal center for Arab minority rights in Israel, said in a statement on Monday that it had met with 11 of the 12 people detained following the Madlene's interception before some of them who consented to deportation flew out of Tel Aviv. It said at least 4 people had been deported or were being deported from Israel, while 8 remained in detention at Givon prison in Ramla and planned to contest their deportation before an Israeli tribunal. They were expected to appear before an immigration detention review tribunal Tuesday morning. The Madlene, dubbed the Freedom Flotilla by activists, departed Sicily earlier this month in a bid to break Israel's naval blockade, which has been in place since 2007. This is why Gazans can't fish their own waters. This blockade didn't just start on October 7th. October 7th partly started because of the blockade, one could argue. Right. When Hamas rose to power in the Gaza Strip and deliver aid to Palestinians. So to be clear, so why are 8 of them still there? Okay, so in order to get out, you had to sign a thing essentially admitting that you did something wrong and that you could never enter Israel again. So 8 of them are refusing to sign that, and that's why they're still there. They're going to contest the deportation, and they don't want to admit to being guilty of anything. So the flotilla has been getting a lot of support. This is France,
Man.
Yep. That was in response to the news that they had stopped the flotilla. And this is Switzerland. They shut down the train station. This is all in protest of Israel seizing the boat. So we have some footage of when they were stopped. Now, if you listen closely, you can hear them telling them to throw the phones overboard. They didn't want them to have any phones because obviously they wanted to control the narrative, and you'll see the kind of footage that they put out.
It's being very protected for us.
Guys, oh my God!
Yes, I'm going to take over. These people are here. We need Mobilisez-vous. Mobilisez-vous. Go to the places. Ditch the phones. Ditch the phones. Ditch the phones. Yes. Phones in the water, please.
Phones in the water, please.
Phones in the water, please. And this is the footage of the happy pirated and kidnapped flotilla members that the Israeli propaganda machine put out. See, we are very nice. We are very nice. Nothing like what you're hearing in the anti-Semitic UN and in ICC. We're very nice. We get nice sandwich.
If it gives you an iPad, you watch Curb Your Enthusiasm.
You can watch whatever you want. We don't care. We have open society. You want to watch the L Word? We love that show. We love that show. Israel L Word number one. We especially like lipstick lesbian in Israel. So that is what they put out. Oh, look how wonderfully we're treating them. They put out this picture of Greta getting a sandwich like this is a UNICEF campaign. And this is what the ministry put out. Good morning to all of our followers. In case you missed it, the selfie yacht is safely making its way to the shores of Israel. The passengers are safe and were provided with sandwiches and water and are expected to return to their home countries. The tiny amount of aid that wasn't consumed by the celebrities will be transferred to Gaza through real humanitarian channels. More than 1,200 aid trucks have entered Gaza from Israel within the past 2 weeks, and close to 11 million meals were transferred by the GHF directly to civilians in Gaza. There are ways to deliver aid to the Gaza Strip. They involve bullets and genocide.
Yeah.
They do not involve provocations and selfies.
So the mercenaries took the aid and they're going to hand it out.
They're going to hand it out. Yes.
Yeah.
The mercenaries that are so scummy that a Boston consulting firm left the project, fired everyone involved, and the CEO apologized to all of their stakeholders. Yes, that aid effort. Now, I knew when they put this out, that has to be a tiny amount of aid relative to the population they're supposed to be feeding. And this NBC article indeed points that out. Gaza has a population of around 2.1 million people. So the meals the Foreign Affairs Ministry referenced would, over the course of 2 weeks, equate to roughly a third of a meal per day for each member of the population. See, they're such scum, they tell on themselves, even when they're trying to do propaganda. Before the war, more than 500 trucks had been entering Gaza daily, according to the British Red Cross and other humanitarian groups. Thunberg, a climate activist, said the mission was essential amid global silence on Israel's actions in Gaza. The Madeleine was also carrying Thiago Avila, a Brazilian activist and politician, Rima Hassan, a French member of the European Parliament, and Baptiste Andre, a French doctor who traveled with the group to assist passengers injured in any potential confrontations with Israeli forces. Adallah said Avia and Hassan were among the 8 people still detained, with Andre among those deported. So Rima Hassan put this out in part. Israel once again violates international law with complete impunity. By intercepting a humanitarian ship in international waters, Israel once again tramples on maritime and humanitarian law. And don't forget, Israel 15 years ago in 2010 killed 10 people aboard a similar effort aboard a Gaza flotilla. President Trump says Greta Thunberg is a strange, young, angry person. Nothing like the girls that my friend Jeffrey used to have. They were very accommodating. They were very nice. I liked them. But this one, she's very angry. She's the type that Jeff wouldn't have let on the island back in the old days.
Go ahead. Do you have a message for Greta Thunberg, and did she come up on your call with the Prime Minister today?
Well, she's a strange person. She's a young, angry person. I don't know if it's real anger. It's hard to believe, actually, but I saw what happened. She's certainly different. Anger management. I think she has to go to an anger management class. That's my primary recommendation for her.
Kidnapped by Israel, as she says? Was she kidnapped?
I find it. I think Israel has enough problems without kidnapping Greta Thunberg.
And secondly, are you going to
Is that what she said? She was kidnapped by Israel?
Yes, sir. Are you going to get rid of the Tesla and the Starlink service that you have?
Wrong. Yeah,
it's the wrong tone.
Yeah, they literally kidnapped her. You are not allowed to go seize a boat in international waters. They were not even bound for Israel. They were bound for Gaza, which is not part of Israel yet. So the foreign ministry put this out a little later. The passengers of the selfie yacht, you see, you'll have to keep repeating it. You have to keep repeating it so it gets in the head, so everyone thinks that way. Arrived at the Ben Gurion airport to depart from Israel and return to their home countries. Some of the selfie yacht passengers are expected to leave within the next few hours. Those who refuse to sign deportation documents and leave Israel will be brought before a judicial authority in accordance with Israeli law to authorize their deportation. Consuls from passengers' home countries met them at the airport. So this is Greta Thunberg. She's on the way back home by way of Paris. This is what she said.
National waters, we were illegally attacked and kidnapped by Israel and taken against our will to Israel, where we were detained. And then some of us deported, some are still there. There are very big uncertainties because it was quite chaotic and uncertain. So I don't really know what's going on. I haven't had a phone for many days. And
What were the conditions for you over the last few hours?
They were absolutely nothing compared to what people are going through in Palestine, especially Gaza right now. And this is yet another international a violation of international rights, adding to the list of countless of such, especially towards Palestinians, that Israel are committing by blocking and preventing humanitarian aid from entering Gaza. That is illegal.
How did the Israelis treat you? We saw them giving out sandwiches on their social media. How did it?
Yeah, they probably have posted lots of PR stunt videos. As I said, I have not seen anything, but they did an illegal act by kidnapping us on international waters and against our will, bringing us to Israel, keeping us in the bottom of the boat, not letting us getting out and so on.
Screw you guys, I'm going home.
So this is Sarah Wilkerson. The only reason the Israelis did not kill the member of European Parliament, Rima Hassan, Greta Thunberg, and the others is because we were watching. I would argue that it's partly because Rima Hassan and Greta Thunberg were on that boat. This is also from Sarah Wilkerson. Palestinian artist Yazid Abu Jarad and friends create an artwork at Gaza City's beach near where the Madeleine was to dock. Very beautiful work there. Professor Zenkus. Where are all the liberal influencers standing in solidarity with the Gaza Freedom Flotilla? Brooklyn Dad defiant, Barack, Hillary, Kamala, all silent. They never cared about Gaza. They never saw it as genocide. They only saw it as an inconvenience.
That's right.
Yes. Yanis Varoufakis. To watch the entire West back Israel's non-existent right to board a vessel in international waters and abduct its crew and passengers on the might is right principle is to witness the death of international law again. Yes. You really don't see that covered very much in any of the reporting. You certainly don't see it in the headlines. What if this were China? All the headlines would be China illegally seizes boat from international waters. Not one headline emphasizing that this is an illegal action. We're very glad it ended this way. There was virtually no way it was going to end with them in Gaza. We always knew that. And the fear, of course, given who they're dealing with, is that they would pull a USS Liberty and just kill everybody on board. And who would have held them accountable if they had? But fortunately, they decided, we're skating on thin ice right now with the PR and our public image. Probably not a good idea to whack Greta Thunberg and try to blame it on a on-ship gas leak.
Yeah, I think that would have been too much. And I think they knew that would have been too much. That would have been too much for the world to stomach, which...
This can be a good thing for us. We just go to 7-Eleven. We get some sandwiches. We give them out, take pictures.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I mean, that would have been too much, which is kind of perverse, that, all of this has not been too much already. But, the power of celebrity is real and meaningful if you wield that power for good.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And that's what makes the widespread silence among that community so shameful, is that, Greta Thunberg getting on that boat probably did make a huge difference. Well, I know it definitely made a huge difference. I think it probably was the difference between life and death for those on board. That's what I think.
Yes.
And I don't think that's really an overstatement.
I agree. Well, and that's why I have absolutely no patience for that community, artists, celebrities going and speaking out on the kind of bullshit that they know isn't going to cost them any work, because they will absolutely not speak out on anything like this. Ricky Gervais said it. If tomorrow you thought you could get an opportunity, I can't remember who he said, if they opened a studio, you would.
If ISIS opened a studio, you'd call your agent or something like that.
You'd call your agent. Like they are so amoral, which it would be more acceptable if they didn't virtue signal the way that they do. As if you have principles. Don't pretend to have principles. Have principles or don't have principles, but they want it both ways. They want the thrill of being moral and adored for their high ideals and morality, but they do not want it to cost them a gig. And you speak out on this, especially in show business, it's going to cost you a lot of gigs. That's why you don't see these celebrities on these boats or making these kinds of gestures.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And, like you said earlier, and, like we've said before, I don't hold it against people for not getting on the boat. I wouldn't get on the boat. I'm not brave enough to get on the boat.
No.
Show support for the boat.
You can say something.
Amplify.
And to be fair, some have, but not enough.
No, nowhere near enough. Absolutely. All right. You got a duck in the back room because I got to do this ad read for Father's Day. And then you'll be back in a moment.
Do it.
All right. Okay. All right, folks. So, hey, the hardest part about cooking or barbecuing meat, steaks, chicken, or fish is being tethered to that hot stove or that barbecue grill, sweating, constantly checking on the meat, singeing your eyebrows, and then serving it. And what would you know? It's either too well done or too rare, or half of it is overcooked and half of it is undercooked. But those days are gone. You can get yourself a Chef IQ Sense and get ready for the Food Network. So Chef IQ Sense, this is a really cool product. It's a brilliantly simple cooking sensor that goes into whatever you're cooking. It's like a meat thermometer, but it's wireless, and it's way smarter. It takes all the stress out of not knowing if your meat will come out perfect. So just enter whatever you're cooking into the Chef IQ Sense app. Steaks, chicken, fish, whatever it is. You can preset if you cook something every so often. You can say what cut of meat it is, if it's on the bone, off the bone, what temperature you like it cooked. And the Chef IQ Sense will continuously monitor and predict precisely when that food will be done. No checking and rechecking a hot oven, sweating over a barbecue, frying pan, or air fryer. You're free at that point to kick back, visit with guests, or do whatever else needs doing while your food cooks. Chef IQ Sense sends an alert to your smartphone when your steaks, chicken, or seafood are cooked to order the way you like it. No more guesswork. This is the world's smartest, simple-to-use wireless cooking sensor, and they just announced a flash sale. You got to jump on it, though. Summer grilling season is here, and Chef IQ Sense makes you a grill master. It's also the perfect Father's Day gift. Father's Day coming up this Sunday, and during their flash sale, you'll get 15% off your purchase. So go to chefiq.com and enter promo code DD, or you can scan this QR code. The link, of course, is in the description of this video. Once again, that's chefiq.com, promo code DD. All right, Russell, you can come on back in. That's a cool product. That's a cool product. They're sending me one. It's in the mail.
Are they sending me one?
Yeah, they're sending us both one.
What if I want to cook some meat?
Yeah, they got both of our addresses. They're sending us both. They're sending us both some Chef IQ sensors. So yeah, you put it on your ad. That's a good idea. That's a good idea. See, these are the kinds of things that they think of. Because it is true. I mean, a meat thermometer is one thing, but, you can customize it. It's a nifty gift. See, that's a thoughtful gift. Thoughtful gift items are good. Thoughtful gift items are few and far between. Half of the battle when you're buying a gift is the thoughtfulness part, right? Even if the person won't use it, if it's a clever enough concept, they give you credit for it, which is the most important thing. The most important thing when you're buying a gift for someone is not whether they'll use it and get enjoyment out of it. It's whether they give you credit for having thought of it. That's clever. That's a really clever idea. A meat thermometer that sends an alert to my phone when the meat is done. That's thoughtful. They think you really like them and care about them when you give them something like that. And that's the most important thing. Whether they use it or not, who cares?
Yeah.
Who cares? The most important thing is you get credit for it.
All right, as a straight dude, I find the hardest category to shop for are wealthy women. Like that is almost impossible because you can't get them any jewelry, right? Like,
right.
What would you get them that they're going to wear, right? Because they have nice shit, right?
That's why you only date destitute women. Russell only dates the poor.
Well, that's why I go, most people don't know about this website. It's, people go to Ukraine brides. There's a website, Detroit Brides, where you just
Detroit Brides. Yeah.
Yeah. No, you just mail them over from Detroit. It's a lot cheaper.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Less paperwork. No customs.
Yeah, you don't have to go through all that. You don't have to get a green card. Nothing.
Yeah. Exactly.
You just there's a whole abandoned shopping mall where they have tents set up for them.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Whatever you want. All right, what do we got here? We got Furrow Queen says chlamydia test used to be done with a tiny cocktail umbrella up your urethra, opened it and scraped it out again. Having a slash later in the day, I didn't know I'd hit the roof. Thanks for coming to TED Talk. Thank you, Furrow Queen.
Dear.
Yeah. The LA protests are doomed to be BLM 2.0. Can we do less car burning and more solidarity strike? If unionizing the site was the standard response to ICE raids, the corporations would be begging ICE to leave. That's a good point, Kawaii Cowboy. EO Shush, here's $5, but I really wanted to donate 15. Fought really hard to donate 15, but the parliamentarian said no. Well, thank you, EO Shush. Thank you for your effort, and thank you for respecting the process. Thank you for respecting the system. We admire that about you. Let's see here. Sir Bikes a Lot says, I've ridden over 20 transit systems since 2015. Transit systems on the East Coast charge more and you get less. I'm against fare free transit in places like NYC, but the fare needs to be cut. Well, yeah, what is a Metro card swipe now? What are they getting for a Metro card now?
$275.
Oh, it's still $275. Wow. So
Yeah,
it actually hasn't gone up that much.
Yeah, this is something of which I know. All right, there is no place I've ever been that is as well covered by public transportation as New York City. I know in America, there's absolutely no city that has as much coverage. Worldwide, I don't know about Asia. That having been said, there's a price to be paid for being an early innovator. What winds up happening is people who copy what you did improve on it, and they have newer versions that work better. So the New York City subway system literally has some 100-year-old switches that they're constantly having to work on and keep it all going, because you built this old system. Now you kind of stuck with it. It would cost more to replace it than it would have been if you had no subway and you just built one from the beginning. So you're stuck with this old system. So yeah, it's not as clean as other train systems, even within America. You know, most train systems do not have that gritty, dirty look of our 100-year-old system. They're not like that. But I've never been any place even outside the country. And again, I haven't traveled extensively in Asia, maybe in China or Japan. You get that kind of coverage. Definitely no place in America, no place I've ever been in Europe where you could get pretty much anywhere for that price. Like, we don't even have zoned pricing like you have in many places where it's going to cost you more to go further. $275 anywhere in the city. You can pretty much get to anywhere.
Yeah, because you got the transfers. There are several alternatives to fare-free transit. For €5, Talon gives free rides to residents. Several systems use fare capping. Others use free transfers between routes and modes. Well, we have free transfers in New York as well. That's what Russell's talking about. It's like when the fire department does practice in a real burning building they lit on fire, only for the Palantir-hosted police state. Thank you, Kawaii Cowboy. RB Ham says, glad to see Russell's going full red pill. Everything is going according to plan. The Trumpenstein project is paying off for the architects of the NWO. You have to hand it to them. Pure evil. Thank you, RB.
Yep.
Appreciate that. Californians meet it. We actually fight big government and executive overreach. Texas ain't got shit on us. Oh, you're from California, China Show. Is that right? I think I knew that. It's Vito. Idea for new dissidents intermission video. Trump Newsom to the music. Why can't we be friends? Cancer sucks. You guys rock. Thank you, Vito. Appreciate that very much. Get Greta on the show. That would be a fun stream. Yeah, that would be a fun stream. That would be pretty funny. Okay.
And get her drunk.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yes. So EO Shush, it's because. Yeah, so I looked this up. Yeah, Christian Bale's stepmom is Gloria Steinem. That's right. Because she was married to his father briefly, but it's not like she had anything to do with him as a kid. She married his father, I guess, briefly. When he was a grown man. So technically, yes, that is his stepmom, and that is what I was thinking of, because thank you for that. Appreciate that. All right, so what are we up to now? Okay, yeah, this one. All right, so this is an interesting segment that's a little near and dear to my heart. But I want to introduce you to Invest America. No, they are not a sponsor of the show. They are a movement that is pushing for these $1,000 savings accounts for newborns as a way to replace government programs with privatized investment accounts for American babies to get them invested in capitalism and the enterprise system. Time to return power from the state to individuals rather than ineffective government programs. There's the catch. Let's create an investment account for each child at birth. Financial literacy, graduation rates, and small business stats all improve. And as JT Lyonsdale says, the Marxists will hate this. Let's take a look.
It's very simple. Harnessing the power. The idea of Invest America is very simple. Harnessing the power of compounding and capitalism to give everybody skin in the game. It's legislation that would cause the Treasury Department to create 3.7 million private investment accounts a year. So we have 3.7 million children born a year. Treasury would create 3.7 million private accounts where each of those families has private ownership of those accounts. They would seed it with $1,000 from the federal government, set up a 401k match. So companies or parents could match up to $2,000 tax-free each year, and then just let that compound. If we had started this 30 years ago, a 29-year-old today would have over $250,000 in their Invest America account.
Wow.
It's hard to hate capitalism. It's hard to hate America. It's hard to be financially unconcerned when you open up your Invest America account on your mobile device and you see that you too are a participant and winner in this system.
The Marxists will not like this. That's good. They won't want these kids having this kind of alignment, but we do want them to have this alignment. I mean, there's good guys and bad guys here, and we want them to be aligned with.
This
the
is
right
not
views.
a question in my mind about having a foot in either camp.
Yeah.
You're either on the side of free market capitalist democracy or you're not, and this unequivocally and unabashedly is.
Yeah. You want your money in the stock market so that, we can steal it.
Yeah, what could go wrong?
Yeah.
Not like the stock market ever crashes or anything.
It's not like we ever steal money out of the stock market. It's not like we ever loot the stock market through privilege trading and things like that. No, but you know who loves this idea? The CEOs. That's interesting.
That's shocking.
Uber, Goldman Sachs, and Salesforce CEOs boost $1,000 Trump accounts for kids at White House event. So apparently this is a largely undiscussed provision in the one big beautiful bill. And so here
it's actually in the bill?
It's actually in the bill. Yes. So here is the CEO of Uber, Dara. I can never pronounce his last name, but nobody does. They all call him Dara. So here is Trump giving him the microphone at this White House event.
Thank you. Dara, please. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Mr. President, for hosting us here today. It's an incredible honor to be here in a place that symbolizes the very opportunity that has defined my life. Thank you, Brad. Thank you, Michael, for your vision. We all strive to build something that lasts, and the Invest America Act is a legacy that is going to last for generations. President Trump, thank you for your leadership. Your support is going to turn this powerful idea into a powerful reality for millions of young Americans. Now, I was 9 years old when I came to this country. My family arrived in America having fled the Iranian Revolution. We had lost everything that we had built. But we gained something far more valuable here. We gained a chance to rebuild again. We had a close-knit family. We had access to world-class education. And we had the one thing that fuels every American dream, and that's hope. So what if we could bottle up that hope? What if we could give that same powerful, real, tangible hope that comes from having a stake in your own future and a stake in the best companies in the world to every single child that's born in this country? That's the promise of the Invest America Act. It's not just an account, it's a launch pad. It puts the unstoppable engine of compounding to work for our kids, building a future for them from day one. This mission is personal to me, and it's core to us at Uber. Every day we see people using our platform to create opportunities for themselves, to save for a home, to pay for tuition, to build their own American dream one trip at a time.
Oh, yeah.
And that's why Uber is so proud to support this bill, which also includes benefits for millions of Uber drivers and couriers in the form of no tax on tips. Mr. President, our earners are grateful for your support.
Thank you very much.
Our earners are grateful for your support. The drivers are grateful for the support. So Uber drivers support the one big beautiful bill now, even with the Medicaid cuts and all the slashing of the social safety net. That's news. You know, it also might be news to people who think they're on the fast track to the American dream when they drive for Uber. They were deactivated from delivering. Their finances were devastated. Now, I have experience with this myself. For those of you who are fairly new to the show, I was a rideshare driver, essentially full-time for a number of years, and I did a lot of the food delivery as well, not just on Uber Eats, but on the other apps, Grubhub, DoorDash.
Was that because you don't like people? You wanted to deliver food instead?
That, and it's also more profitable, and at the time it was a lot easier to control your day, because at the time when an Uber ride request came in, it would tell you if it was a long ride, 45 minutes or longer. But beyond that, it wouldn't tell you anything about it. You could be going 3 minutes down the road, or you can be going 44 minutes out of town. And it made it very difficult to, hey, if it's 4 o'clock and you got to be home by 5:30, you want to keep your rides to 10 minutes or less and stay within a certain radius. And you couldn't do that. You would just get pulled out of nowhere.
Right.
Very far away, and then you got to deadhead it back. So financially, it's not even really worth it.
Right.
Now they actually, thanks to pressure, tell drivers in advance, okay, you're picking up person A here and dropping them off here, and you can say whether you want it or not. Now it's a little easier. But the dollar per mile ratio does work out better for food. And yes, I could listen to podcasts and music or whatever I want and not have to deal with people in the car. So that was another plus. But the precariousness of this labor situation is really horrible. So I'm so glad that this article came out, because I went through the exact situation that actually one of the people mentioned in the article did, about random AI generated automated deactivation, which is essentially firing of drivers. Steve McDougal earned about $900 a week delivering for Uber Eats and DoorDash, whizzing through the heavy traffic of Gloucester, Massachusetts on an e-bike. The flexible hours allowed him to tend to his 15-year-old daughter and 2 parents with disabilities. It's not great money, but it's freedom, said Mr. McDougal, 40 years old. I get to come home a lot during the day. I get to go to my daughter's softball games, practices, doctor's appointments, anything I need to. In November 2023, he received an email from Uber notifying him that his account had been deactivated. It cited fraudulent activity, but did not elaborate. He immediately appealed. I just wrote a little comment saying, I work 6 days a week for you guys. I've never done anything wrong, he said. See, that's his first mistake, is phrasing it as, hey, I work for you guys. No, you work for an algorithm. You don't work for a person. You are not a person to them. You are a number to them. This, hey, I'm a good employee. You're not an employee at all. You're a contractor.
Right.
That's why they have this arrangement, so that they can just deactivate you randomly with very little recourse on your end. 3 months later, 3 months after he appealed the deactivation, Uber sent Mr. McDougal an email stating that a review concluded that activity on his account was fraudulent and did not reactivate his account. He had completed 1,720 deliveries on the app over more than 3 years, relying just on DoorDash deliveries. His income dropped to $500 on a good week, he said. So he did what I used to do, which is you have all the apps running at the same time, and you take the best orders that come in on one, and then you turn off the others until you're done with the order you're working on. Or every once in a while, you can stack and do 2 at once if they're going in the same direction. You can cheat the system once in a while. According to data from Public First, a tech industry group, about 7.3 million Americans earn money by working through an app like Uber, Lyft, Instacart, or DoorDash. The way companies decide to suspend a worker is largely unregulated. For drivers who rely on apps for all or most of their income, deactivation can be a push toward the financial break. Some drivers say they were deactivated because of technical snafus, misunderstandings, or reasons that are unclear to them, rather than for serious rule violations. Mr. McDougal lives with his brother and parents and began delivering for apps after swelling in his legs forced him to quit his job as a clam digger. His brother, who is on the autism spectrum, earns money stocking shelves at a grocery store. His parents bring in less than $2,000 through Social Security programs. He pays $100 a week in child support for a daughter who lives with her mother and contributes to another daughter's expenses when he can. Shortly after Mr. McDougal lost access to Uber Eats, his family's monthly rent on their 3-bedroom apartment increased from $1,800 to $2,200 a month. He negotiated lower payments on his credit cards, and his daughter's mother accepted a temporary pause on his child support payments. So look at how your life is just upended. How could it not be? I mean, who could afford to take 3 months off of work or have 3 months of reduced income? Delivering for 2 apps allowed Mr. McDougal to cherry pick more lucrative work, as I was talking about. With just DoorDash available to him, he needed to choose more lower paying deliveries, putting in additional hours to reach 70% of the income he had previously made. So he eventually did get his account reactivated. it was found that the fraudulent activity, and I didn't want to read all this because they put it very long-winded. I could put it very shortly. The fraudulent activity had to do with this one woman who was a repeat customer, as I used to get all the time. You know, you're driving around a relatively small town. You know, I would go to the same person every, you know, a lot of people just make a habit of, hey, ordering the same lunch every day from DoorDash or whatever.
Sure.
There was this woman who ordered like Dunkin' Donuts coffee every day at around the same time. And he kept getting orders from her because she was a good tipper. And he kept getting orders from her and accepting orders from her. And the algorithm thought that she was coordinating with him, colluding with him to place the order so that he could pick it up to juice his order numbers, because you get like incentives if you make 20 deliveries a day. Sometimes they'll throw you an extra couple bucks or whatever.
They never heard of a regular?
Right. They never heard of a regular customer. Right. So that's what it was. It was a regular customer who they suspected was colluding with him behind the scenes to boost his delivery stat numbers. And that's why they deactivated him for fraud. So once they found out that was not fraud, they reactivated him, but he lost months worth of work and had to upend his entire life. The little existing research on deactivations indicates that they are surprisingly common. See, this shocked me. A 2023 survey of app drivers conducted by a coalition of labor groups found that 40% had been deactivated at some point. 40% had been essentially fired at some point. In another survey of more than 800 California drivers, 2/3 said they had faced deactivation. 2/3 had faced deactivation. Uber, Lyft, and DoorDash did not provide numbers on their rates of deaction for this story. Of course they're not. Of course that's a black box. So this is why I say it's a double-edged sword. On the one hand, yes, when you work for these apps, you do have a certain freedom in the sense that you can turn the app on and off as you please, and if your kid has a baseball game, you can go to it, whatever. But in another sense, you are working for robots. You're working for Skynet, and they can just fuck you at any moment for any reason. So, you know, there's nothing freeing about that. And look at how often this happens to people. Even a temporary suspension of an account can cause deep financial strain. Drivers that we've talked to have done everything from lose the lease on their car, wreck their credit, to being evicted from the house or the apartment that they're renting, said Nicholas Weber, one of the University of Washington researchers. He noted that some drivers buy or lease vehicles for these gigs. It's pretty catastrophic for drivers. That's right. Sometimes they do buy or lease vehicles for these gigs. Then they get the car payment. Then they can't pay it because they're not earning. Keegan Lee was locked out of his DoorDash account last May because he failed a facial recognition test. This same thing happened to me when I was an Uber driver. As a safeguard against account sharing, DoorDash sporadically prompts drivers to use their phone's camera to match their face with a previously uploaded image. I might have had shorter hair and the beard might have been shorter, said Mr. Lee, 27, who lives in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. The suspension came at a bad time. Mr. Lee had been laid off from a job selling mattresses. He negotiated his way out of a newly signed lease on an apartment and stayed at budget hotels until he found a steady paycheck. I'm stuck in a kind of vortex where I need money every few days, so I can't not DoorDash or Uber Eats 10 hours a day, every day, he said. Relying on Uber Eats, Mr. Lee's earnings dropped from about $350 a week to $225. He borrowed money from friends and family and eventually moved in with his father. He filed an appeal with DoorDash, uploading his driver's license and Social Security card to prove his identity. After 3 months, DoorDash reinstated him. So once again, lost 3 months. How are these fucking companies not getting sued for this? Like, you should be allowed to fucking sue them.
Because you're an independent contractor. They could do whatever they want.
Exactly. It's insane and cruel to just falsely take away somebody's ability to feed themselves under false pretense, he said. The decision to deactivate Keegan was made by a human agent, not an algorithm, based on evidence suggesting potential account inauthenticity, said Julian Crowley, a DoorDash spokesman. That's almost certainly bullshit. During the appeal process, the evidence was found to be inaccurate, and the deactivation was overturned after 3 months. Same exact thing happened to me when I drove for Uber. As you know, anybody who watches the show, sometimes I am clean-shaven, sometimes I have a little scruff, sometimes I have a little beard. And my selfie check when I was driving Uber, this is when I was driving passengers, didn't recognize the clean-shaven version of me in my uploaded profile picture. And on the first event, it didn't say, hey, let's try that again. Let's try it a second time. It didn't lock you out for 24 hours. Sometimes, like, Instacart would do that. If something weird happens where an order is returned or something goes wrong, they'll put a 24-hour freeze on your account. They'll investigate it, and then they'll reinstate you, which is very annoying and very inconvenient to lose a day's work. But it's not deactivation. It's not a 3-month suspension. No, on the first offense, I called the tech support. I said, what's up? And it's someone for working in the Philippines for $3 an hour, just reading a prompt off a screen. Obviously, they said, we know this is very upsetting news, but your account has been permanently deactivated. This is a final decision. We wish you well in all your future endeavors. I said, are you kidding? I said, permanently deactivated? What? It says, yes, you're permanently deactivated for violating our terms of service regarding account sharing and safety. I said, but it's me. It's me. I just have some scruff on my face. What are you talking about? I called support a dozen times. I must have called a dozen times, spoken to a dozen people. I say, can I speak to a supervisor? Yes, they put you on hold. They tap their friend next to them. They're the supervisor, quote unquote. They come on. Nothing. Finally, after, and like I said, by this time, 90% of people would just give up and say, well, fuck it, I guess I'm fired. After a dozen phone calls, someone says to me, go to a green light center, which are a couple of offices that Uber have set up in each of the states that they're operational in. And you get to talk to someone in person and explain what happened. There were only 2 green light hubs at that time in New York State. One was in Long Island City. One was in either Buffalo or Rochester. So what if I lived where I am now? This would be like an 8-hour round trip to go to one of these fucking things. All expenses I have to pay. I was meeting Nick Brana, of all people, that, he was in town for Left Forum and he wanted to meet me. So I said, yeah, I got to come down there anyway to get my Uber account reactivated. So I went down, I met Nick, and then I went there and I explained to them what happened. And they put it in a request to have it reviewed by an in-person higher up. And 4 days later, I got my account back. But I asked the woman there, I said, why couldn't I do this on the phone? Like, why did I have to come here? First of all, I was repeatedly told I was permanently deactivated and that there was absolutely nothing I could do. So the only reason I'm here at all is because I stuck to it after a dozen times because I'm a stubborn bastard. But why couldn't the person on the phone do this the first time I asked when it was so obviously an AI error where it just didn't recognize my face? And she's like, I forget what answer she gave me, but whatever answer she gave me was just copy pasta bullshit. The obvious answer is that these companies know that their systems implemented as is, which rely so heavily on automated algorithms and cheap labor, for $3 an hour in underdeveloped countries where the people on the phone may as well be AI prompts. They're just reading pre-generated response off the screen. They know that doing it that way is going to cost thousands of drivers a year their living. Could cost them their apartment, could cost them their health insurance, could cost them their credit score, send them into default on student debt, whatever. They do not care. They know at the end of the day, it is cheaper and more profitable for them to do it this way than to treat their workers like human beings. And so they choose to do it the scummy way. This is part of why I knew that Doge was going to be what it was, because this is who all of these people are. This is who Elon is. This is who Alex Karp is. This is who Mark Andreessen is. They are all the same in this way. They care absolutely nothing whatsoever about human beings. Nothing. You think that story makes a damn bit of difference to them? This guy's he's behind on his child support. He has to rework things with the mother of his kid. He's got to take care of his parent. Doesn't matter. All these people who drive the rideshare, they're living pretty close to the wall financially. That's why I did it when I did it, right? I was juggling together like 4 very sporadic part-time gig-oriented kind of jobs. Plus that was like my steady day job that, okay, anytime I want to go out and make $150 in 8 hours, I can. That's at least something somewhat solid. But it's not solid because they can take it from you at any second. So when the CEO there goes and says about how his drivers are equipped to pursue the American dream, no, you're not. No, you're not. You're serfs working for a robot. At best, you're borrowing money against the value of your car because given what they pay minus expenses, you're profiting very little, assuming you don't get fucked like that. but thousands of people. I was stunned by that. 40% of food delivery drivers get deactivated. They're all for arbitrary reasons. What fraud are you perpetrating as a DoorDash driver? What do you fucking like? It's insane. At the most, you're going to make $30 an hour. So what? You're going to cook up some scheme with a customer. Hey, I'm going to park outside the Popeyes, order $100 worth of food. Like it's insane. 40%.
I'll split the bonus with you.
Right. Like it's so stupid.
Like that's going to happen. In what world would that happen?
40% of drivers deactivated. 2/3 of Uber drivers face deactivation. It's insane. It's insane. But this is the future that they want to usher in. This is what we keep talking about. When you talk about the ushering in of AI, you talk about the empowerment of big tech. This, what we just read you, that is the ethos of all of these people. None of these people care about people at all.
Right.
At all. Whether whether the product in question is for-profit surveillance on behalf of Donald Trump and Pam Bondi or food delivery. The ethos is the same. Move fast, break things, do as little work as possible, delegate as much responsibility to robots so that we can claim we built a system but not actually have to be personally responsible for the fruits of that system, i.e. wrongful firings of 40% of our workforce, right? They don't get sued for that? They don't get sued for that? You falsely claim that your DoorDash driver was colluding with a Dunkin' Donuts customer. You falsely claim that, keep him out of work for 3 fucking months, and he has no legal recourse against you? That's right, no legal recourse against you. That is techno-feudalism. If that's not tech feudalism, what is? What is?
Yeah, well, this is what Varoufakis writes about, that they took an internet that at one point for a minute was kind of free and open, and they did what the feudal lords did to establish the feudal system. They fenced off the common lands. So now you've got to go to them to graze your sheep. You got to go to them to plant your crops, and now you're a sharecropper. You're a serf. You're somebody who works on their land where they're taking most of what you earn, and you're taking a small amount there for yourself. Or to use what they fenced off, you have to pay them a monthly fee. This is what they love. They love when you pay rent rather than to buy. All of these things. Netflix is a great example, right? You don't own any of the movies you watch. Right. You don't actually even very often when you buy these digital movies, if you look at the terms, if you buy it, you still don't own it. They still own the rights to that digital service. So yeah, man, it's feudalism. They want you all working on land that you don't own for people who are going to be the primary beneficiaries of your labor. And the independent contractor law is this enormous loophole to labor law that they, not surprisingly, have used to get around all of the gains, the increasingly shrinking gains, but the gains that have been made by the labor movement, because that's what you kept saying. And why you can't sue for that? And as you know, no, you can't. Not if you're an independent contractor. You serve, and this is really recreating the logic of feudalism. You serve at the pleasure of the Lord. If the Lord wants to dismiss you, you have absolutely no recourse. You could just be kicked off the lands of the Lord, and good luck to you. Good luck to you. We wish you luck in all your future endeavors.
Exactly. Yep. 836 likes. All right. Thanks, everybody, very much for being here. Got 1,900 strong in the YouTube chat, 1,400 strong on Rumble. Let's see here. Sean Brock says there are no unions, no New Deal without solidarity organizing with immigrants. Dividing the working class is what undermines labor, not immigrants. Yes, I agree with that. China Shell, proud of my California brothers and sisters. Brad Gilbert, money to deport, bad. Click huge metric show purpose. Thank you. English Police, thanks for the $20. Says, hey guys, you got to stop saying yeah, no, and no, yeah at the start of a sentence. It makes no grammatical sense. Oh, I apologize. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Yes, thank you, English Police. Appreciate that. English Police 99. living up to your name there. Israel, sorry, Keaton. I will just try direct next time. This sensorial society in which we live. I think Israel, you could say in the chat. They're sensitive about like the Zionist word in the chat, but I think Israel, you could say. Michael Castillo, thanks for the $50. Let's have a cowbell for Michael Castillo. And where's his sound drop?
I'll find it.
All right,
I'll
Russ will find it. Russ, I tried telling you this while at Carlos in March. In January, Rabbi Yoel Alter was arrested. He was a member of child sex trafficking organization Lev Tahor. It was founded in Israel in the 1980s. They've been fleeing authorities ever since. He was busted in Guatemala. Free Palestine. Interesting. Thank you, Michael.
Why were you trying to tell me this?
Why were you trying to tell him that? He's trying to tell you that.
People, I don't know if this is related. I still get this about the tunnels. Like we did that segment early in the Jimmy run where, I made the point. Whenever you get these very patriarchal, closed communities, you get perverts. You got it in the Catholic Church, you got it with the Jews, you got it in any community like that. I mean, particularly when you look at the history of the Catholic Church, to say this is like a Jewish thing is crazy. Now, one thing I will say about Israel, because of the right to return of Jews, yeah, it seems that you have a disproportionate number of fans of the playground and SA veterans who go to Israel to avoid prosecution. So you have like a disproportionate number of people with that propensity in that particular country.
Did you find the sound?
Blasphemy against you? Who the hell are you? Are you Jesus Christ, you loser?
Snork Y2K says, I wonder if the new focus on ICE protests is to draw attention away from Gaza. Well, it's also drawing attention away from the Elon spat, too. Eric Suarez, Piers Morgan made fun of Greta as well. Yeah, what a punk-ass bitch.
Did he?
Yeah. Virtuoso, thanks for the $2.90. So we did that segment with him about Douglas Murray. I almost don't want to.
That's why you don't want to pump him up.
Yeah, I almost don't even want to clip that now. We will anyway because it was funny, but kind of sucks. Virtuoso, this super chat is the actual value of a train ride. Thank you for the $2.90. Appreciate that. Russell, you've never been, Omar says. Omar Barovic, appreciate that. All right, let's move right on along. All right, this is a good one. This is a juicy one.
Okay, so there's been a lot of talk this week about Palantir, and Tim Dillon kind of spilled the tea, claiming that Palantir is buying people.
You have not one reservation about what's going on over there. I'm not saying you have to feel one way or another way, but if you don't have any if you have no reservations about what's happening with all these kids getting killed, I don't know, I can't trust you. If you don't have any reservations about Palantir taking everyone's information, I don't know. I don't know if I can trust you. I think they're buying people left and right. This is my guess. They try to buy me. My pussy costs a lot of money. I get invited to these dinners. I don't go. I've been invited to Teal's house multiple times for dinner. I don't go. It's no shade at them or whatever, The reason I don't go is I remember one dinner, they're like, we'd like to discuss the media. I go, what? No, thanks. We'd like to discuss dinner. We discuss the media and culture. No, thanks.
And then all of a sudden, Russell Brand pulls up with a carton of eggs. I was out of there.
Appreciate it.
That's funny.
Appreciate it. That's fine. Don't need here's what I'm doing every week. I'm discussing the media. Hey, good news. I have a show.
Yeah.
I have a show. You can listen to it. You can listen to it if you're curious about, but I've been to some of these places. I've sat in these houses in Austin with these tech people, and I know what they want, and I know what they want me to go out and cheerlead for and say, well, it's actually a great idea, and there's probably a lot of money in it. There's probably a lot of money, and I just can't do it. It's not because I'm some great moral I wouldn't be good at it. I'd be terrible at coming on here going, well, the good thing about the list. Well, no, if you actually think about the list this way, all my people that listen every week go, what the fuck happened to him? What the fuck happened to him? So my prediction, and I don't want to name names because I don't know, but my prediction is you're going to see a lot of people over the next 6 months start thinking this list's a great idea. They're going to start telling you how great this is. And how it's about terrorism. That's the one that'll start going, well, it's a terror. Have you heard? It's terrorism going to.
Oh, who could he be impersonating there?
Tim Dillon had better check under his car when he leaves the house from now on, because that was a whole lot of truth. So this is what's becoming increasingly clear. And I think we're going to pretty well prove it in this segment. All right. So the whole Joe Rogan, Matt Walsh, conservative commentator thing, just like Trump, it's doing the same thing as the liberal media that you supposedly defeated with this media. They're doing the same thing with the same ends. They're just coming at it from a different angle. What Tim Dillon is saying there, all of a sudden they're talking about these things as a good idea, and there's probably a lot of money in it. Look, we uniquely can't show Joe Rogan clips, and I personally believe, because I think this is when it started, it's when we called him out on his Mark Andreessen interview. And that's not the only interview like that he's done. But when you go and you bring a fucking criminal who literally bankrupts old ladies of their life savings for lunch money, and you just pump him up when he starts making these completely outlandish claims about the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, and you just gush like a schoolgirl when he says, no, they just debank people with the wrong politics. Really?
Yeah.
Come on, man. Come on. You got a responsibility to your fucking audience. I'm sorry you do. And saying you're a pothead moron, that's not, I'm sorry, that doesn't wash. That's not an excuse. Now, I don't think it's necessarily at his level of the game what Dillon's saying. I don't think they're offering him a check. I think they're offering him protection from the liberal class that came after him. It's one wing of the oligarchy offering protection from the other wing of the oligarchy. Can you be the world's most popular podcaster and tell all of these people to go fuck themselves without them taking you down? I don't think so. Probably not. And I think he knows that too. But if you are just an audience person, you cannot trust somebody who would platform people like that and gush over the nonsense that they spill in that way. And, if the price for saying that is we have to go audio only with Joe Rogan, so be it. But if you want to see evidence that people that you might like or trust within that conservative media ecosystem do this came out a couple months ago. Sugary soda industry's covert influencer campaign falls apart. This was one campaign that came out, but you got to wonder how many didn't. This was, part of RFK's Maha campaign, is to get all this sugar out of the soft drinks. Clown World, Eric Doherty, Ian Miles Chong, not Jerome Powell, all of these MAGA influencer accounts for just $1,000, man. Unlike Tim Dillon, their pussies are not expensive, apparently. Right. Their pussies are very cheap. And if you look at the emails, because actually this was Nick Sorter, I think, who uncovered this. If you look at the emails, they didn't even ask any questions. It's just like some organization offered them $1,000. They're like, sure.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So if it's that easy to buy their words, this is the one that got outed. How much of what they say is bought and paid for if it was that easy and they asked no questions about it for $1,000? For $1,000, man. Wow. Okay, so that's one example. I'm going to show you an example later that our friend Mad Crab uncovered that might surprise you. All right, so who are these people getting paid to back that Palantir play? Just like Tim Dillon says. Laura Loomer, time to deploy Palantir tech to Los Angeles to deal with the illegals. You'd love to see it. You're lying if you say you wouldn't. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. I wouldn't love to see it, and I'm not lying. And she followed up because she got a lot of pushback on this. I don't care. I would say it again. I don't care if Palantir Tech surveils jihadis and illegals. I want all of them out of my country. Do you really think we are going to mass deport 65 million people without advanced technology?
I thought it
Are
was
you
20.
that naive? Yeah.
65.
It's going to go. she's a girl can dream.
No people left by the time they're done. Yeah.
Remove every single one. So now, as I say, she is getting some pushback even from MAGA. Selling the fantasy of deporting 20% of the country just to push Palantir surveillance on MAGA. Exactly. This isn't about illegals. It's about conditioning you to cheer while they build the cage before slamming the door behind you. Hear, hear. Jason Bassler. No, I'm not falling for the Elon Trump circus. No, I'm not biting on the LA ICE outrage bait. I'm still here talking about Palantir because that's the story they're desperate to distract you from. Well said. Ian Carroll. So many right-wingers spending their day arguing that Palantir conducting mass surveillance on Americans is good. They've somehow tricked you into advocating for the Patriot Act 2.0. The Patriot Act was only ever going to target terrorists. How long did that last? Think. Now, Ian Carroll's not prepared as of yet to ascribe a profit motive. But here's Alex Jones, who, given that he's been sued to within an inch of his life and beyond, certainly has a financial incentive to stay on the good side of his patrons. Here's what he had to say about Palantir, and it kind of seems to conform to what Tim Dillon predicts here about how some people are going to conduct themselves.
Palantir is tiny. Yeah, it's running Israel's AI that's running around killing people. All this stuff is there. My point is that all this hype about Palantir comes out of the Young Turks and out of the New York Times, and I see almost everybody in Patriot media spending half their time on Palantir.
Hang on. Which is it, Alex? It's coming from the New York Times and the Young Turks, but half of Patriot media is talking about it. So which is, oh, I see. Patriot media, people who absolutely despise the New York Times and the Young Turks, they're just stupid. Is that what you're saying? Are you saying the people in Patriot media are stupid and are being led down the primrose path by these lib media outlets? It's all just a lib conspiracy. Palantir's it's a pisher. They're nothing. Bill Gates is over there. Yeah. Bill Gates, he's behind the bushes.
And it's because you aren't informed. You don't know all the pieces. You're not real scholars.
Not like Alex.
Like I should ask Flynn, I know what he'd say. And it's not because Alex Karp, never met Alex Karp, but I've known about him for 15 years. Know all about Peter Thiel, all of that stuff. Peter Thiel's been backing Trump massively. The point is who else is Trump going to go to in Silicon Valley to try to surveil the government deep state and all the stolen money? Yes, that's who but Elon's not involved in this Golden Dome thing that they're trying to give the contract to Palantir, and the military-industrial complex is pissed.
You see? Yeah. Who else are they going to go to? You see, Palantir is actually the good guys because they're not one of these military contractors that are wasting all the money that Doge is trying to find. So you got to bring in Palantir because they're the white hats, because they're not insiders, they're outsiders, even though they're a CIA creation, as we'll see from Whitney Webb explaining the origins of Palantir. They're the good guys. They're going to come and expose them, and that's why they want you to hate Palantir, because Palantir is just about to expose the military-industrial complex. The best is yet to come, though.
Because Palantir is the Johnny come lately. I'm saying no. Why you hear Palantir, 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 Palantir.
Trying to make a living.
Because you're being led around by the nose by the big globalist
Got bills
AI
to pay.
systems that are mad that Trump's trying to bring in Palantir more.
Look, in hindsight, it probably wasn't the best idea to try to profit off a school shooting. But that's where we are, folks. And I owe about $790 billion to the families.
Yes.
So do me a favor, stop asking me about Palantir. And Nick Sorter, fuck you, man. Fuck you. Do you know what they made me do at Bohemian Grove after that interview?
Yeah.
Nothing I can talk about on the air, brother.
Yeah.
Okay, so Whitney here explains what Palantir actually is.
In 2009, the top engineers at Palantir say they made over 200 visits to CIA headquarters in Langley, Virginia, where the CIA directly guided and tweaked, their software products, which are now used by intelligence agencies around the world, as well as healthcare agencies. The HHS and CDC in the U.S. use Palantir, so does the UK's NHS, and it's expanded really throughout the world. What is really arguably a CIA front company, as I've written in past reports on Palantir, the reason, or rather what Alex Karp and Peter Thiel were interested in doing when they created Palantir was essentially privatizing the Total Information Awareness Program that had just been defunded by Congress. Total information awareness is sort of an outgrowth of the Reagan-Bush era of domestic surveillance schemes, some of which came up during the Iran-Contra proceedings and are linked to things like the continuity of government protocols and the main core database, which are efforts to sort of label people, label domestic dissidents as subversives, based on their online activity. And of course, in the 80s, it was based on other metrics, but now it's your online activity. So whatever data the NSA, for example, hoovers up about you, Palantir decides whether you're deemed subversive or not. And given the continuity of government protocols, which are still on the books, if the US government decides to invoke those, which can be under very vague circumstances, these people labeled subversives by Palantirs could have their constitutional rights suspended if those protocols are ever invoked. So Palantir's role in that, as far as the national security state goes, very intimately involved in Ukrainian military operations during the Ukraine-Russian conflict that's, of course, still ongoing, and are now playing an outsized role in Israel's war on Gaza, which is, as I'm sure Mint Press viewers know, is using AI to mass murder entire families. And Palantir is openly a big part of that, and they're very proud of that. And even when Peter Thiel was asked about that quite recently, he said his bias was to defer to Israel as it relates to the use of AI, this AI-powered war machine that's, committing genocide in the Gaza Strip.
Okay. So she's written quite a lot about this. You could say her life's work is really exposing the figures like Peter Thiel, like Elon Musk, like Reid Hoffman, who make up the group collectively known as the PayPal Mafia, because they were all early investors and partners in PayPal, many of whom still wield enormous influence in Silicon Valley. Basically, what she has laid out is that the CIA, because they defunded the TIA, they had to subcontract out that kind of surveillance and data collection in a way that wouldn't be overseen by Congress. Palantir was the company that developed, alongside CIA guidance, according to Whitney, to do what the CIA couldn't do after Congress decided to shut down the TIA. So they just continued it in a private form where they wouldn't be subject to any constitutional restrictions. By anyone's estimation, calling Palantir a tiny company you don't have to worry about, that's kind of irrelevant. Who bought Alex Jones?
Yeah,
I'm sorry, man. Alex Jones was always a clown, a carnival barker, a performer. People want to point at, he was right about this. Yo, man, you're on a mic 6 hours straight. You're going to be right about some shit. How much was he wrong about? How about that?
He just ranted 4 months ago. We showed this on the last show, but they'll never drive a wedge between Trump and Elon. That's not going to happen. Well, you're wrong about that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Stop clock right time twice a day. But whatever you think about his past work from 20 years ago, that, you can litigate that aside. Clearly, he is bought and paid for to be sitting there trying to deflect attention from Palantir so insistently. And if you really want to see it, watch the look on his face during that Nick Sorter interview. We did a segment on it that's up. Watch it.
Fuentes,
the man,
Nick Fuentes. Yeah.
Nick Fuentes. Sorry.
Yeah.
He's having a complete meltdown. You can see his face trying to figure out how to get back control of this interview that's just gone off the rails in ways that could wind up costing him a lot of money. Now, this video went around. The people made quite a lot of all of these anchors from all these different news stations around the country, all reading from the same script. And it was very revealing. I was very glad to see that get the attention it got. I hope people are going to give the same attention to the next exhibit I'm going to show you after the video, but let's revisit that video.
Greatest responsibility is to serve our Treasure Valley communities, the El Paso, Las Cruces communities, Eastern Iowa communities,
Mid-Michigan communities.
We are extremely proud of the quality, balanced journalism that CBS 4 News produces.
But we are concerned about troubling and irresponsible, one-sided news stories plaguing our country.
The sharing of biased and
False news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish things simply aren't true without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
Okay, right. Yeah, creepy, man. Really creepy. It's a good thing we beat those people. And now the conservative media, the conservative podcasters, the anti-woke people who have displaced them, man, they wouldn't lie to you. Those soda guys notwithstanding, nobody else does anything like that. Well, maybe Alex Jones, but nobody else does anything like that. Oh, well, let's take a look. Shout out to Mad Crab, who put this together. The MAGA Narrative Network. Matt Walsh. Ban all third world immigration, legal or illegal. There should be a moratorium on all immigration from the third world. We've reached our capacity. We cannot be the world's soup kitchen anymore. Charlie Kirk. It's time to ban third world immigration, legal or illegal. We've reached our limit, and we have a huge cultural, educational, housing, financial, and essential services problem to fix now because of it. We need a net zero immigration moratorium with a ban on all third worlders. Jack Posobiec, it's time to ban third world immigration, legal or illegal. We've reached our limit, and we have a huge cultural, educational, housing, financial, and essential services program to fix now because of it. We need a net zero immigration moratorium with a ban on all third worlders. See, now this just proves what I have long said. Matt Walsh is one of the smarter, more talented people in this space because he just took the cut and paste of the first couple lines and then put his own spin on it so that he wouldn't exactly be copying what they told him to put up. But clearly all of them got paid.
Those are on the same day.
Same day, man. Same day. So what? You think you got away from that when you moved over to this media ecosystem? Same shit. What does this tell you? You cannot take anything Jack Posobiec, Charlie Kirk, or Matt Walsh take you seriously ever again. You've seen
except the phallocentric line.
That was great. That was great. Look at it. Look at it. How are they different from those anchors? They're just getting different marching orders. All of this is meant to get you so riled up about the immigration issue that you don't look at Palantir. You don't look at what they're using that issue for. They want this. This is the equivalent of the trans issue on the lib side, to get people arguing over these cultural issues in order that they don't talk about class, they don't talk about economics, and they don't look at what the real agenda is. Just like that video was aimed at shutting down your speech, this is aimed at getting you to support the means by which they're going to make free speech impossible. You're going to be so surveilled by the time they're done with this process, that this is not going to be a country you're going to want to live in, man. So this is just some comments. Lauren McKenzie, hey, just so we're clear, Doge accessed and stole all of our data, gave it to Palantir, and now ICE is partnered with Palantir in order to track all of us. Palantir is run by evil billionaire Peter Thiel, truly scarily evil, and that's over this article. ICE is paying Palantir $30 million to build immigration OS surveillance platform. Okay, so you want to understand, why are they paying these guys to push this? So that the MAGA base doesn't speak out against this. They're using that immigration to build the surveillance state that you thought you were voting against when you defeated Kamala Harris and the Democrats. They're just coming at it from a different angle now, folks. Trumpfile.org. I'd say these are Trump fans, right? It took just 6 weeks to go from ICE partnering with Palantir to track immigrants to the government partnering with Palantir to track all Americans. Yes, yes. And James Lee, 6 months ago, showing at their event, Palantir was a big advertiser. So, yes, and a lot of people have pointed out, well, at least with MAGA, they're speaking out against this. And yeah, I'll say that, man. I never saw the liberal class disagree with anything that they were told by their media, ever, anything. So yeah, credit where credit is due. You do have certain elements, as we saw, of that movement who are red-pilled enough that they're seeing through this. You got a lot of their leading figures, as we just saw, Jack Posobiec, Charlie Kirk, Matt Walsh, even people, honestly, people that I wouldn't have even expected, who are clearly being paid. They're being told what to say. And once you see that, you cannot trust them anymore. Alex Jones, I mean, we've said for a long time, this guy is a clown. After seeing that, again, not somebody you could trust for information. I've said for a while about Joe Rogan, for whatever the reason. I think it's probably to protect himself. He's definitely compromised. He serves these people and he uses his platform to promote their narratives with very little or the mildest pushbacks on them. And you want to see the smoking gun on that? Man, this guy's had like the janitor from NBC on his fucking show. He's never had Whitney Webb on his show. He's never had Whitney Webb on his show. Why? That's not an oversight. There's a reason for that. So a lot of the people you go to that you think are an alternative, they're not an alternative, man. They're all on the same page. In the end, they want to construct a new world order, World Economic Forum agenda. They saw they weren't going to be able to do it with Harris. So now they're doing the same thing with Trump. The only difference is the aesthetics.
Yeah, and the analogy I would make is to 9/11, the post 9/11 environment, where the Muslim man was the scary boogeyman that justified all this. In the Biden era, really, I mean, in the Trump era too, although it wasn't coming directly from the White House, obviously, because Trump was president, but in the woke era, which was, Trump's first term through Biden's term.
It was the white working class under the Democrats.
It was the white workers, right? They were the white nationalists. They were the scary boogeymen who were going to, occupy government buildings in January 6th.
Misinformation,
blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Right, misinformation and hate and all that. And now it is the immigrant. That's it.
Right.
And anyone who falls for it is just a dupe. And yeah, to one of our super chatters made the point, and I've said this all over and over again. I said this at the Worker Strike Back speech. The only response to this is just solidarity with all workers, no matter where they're from. This is clearly manufactured to get you to consent to a police state. That is clearly what this is. What this is. And you are not going to get out of it by parsing, well, hey, I mean, look, on the bright side, maybe our wages will go up. Yeah, ha. That's not going to happen.
Right.
That's not going to happen.
Amazon right now is testing out delivery robots. And this is a point we've always made. What do you think? They want to pay you more? Right. When we got the whole meltdown about supporting the minimum wage increase in fast food restaurants. A lot of the argument was they're just going to replace them with automation, to which we respond, they're going to do that anyway.
They're going to do that anyway.
Why? You think they don't want to not pay people?
Right. Right. There's always a group of people that gets to become the scapegoat to justify more censorship, more surveillance, and more control. The only thing that changes is the specifics of the moment in time that dictates who the scapegoat is, but there always is one. There always is one.
I mean, you got to appreciate the classics, the immigrants. That's that's like the F. Scott Fitzgerald,
exactly.
Scapegoats.
Yes, old school, baby. All right, folks. Well, hey, if you like what we do here and you want to help us do more of it, please become a member at dudissidents.com/Patreon, dudissidents.com/Substack, or dudissidents.com/locals. Either of those three get you your name up in lights here on the Patreon scroll. You also get call-in access to our post-show Q&As, which happen every Sunday night exclusively on Rumble. You also get post-game shows once a month. So once a month, we keep the stream going and do bonus segments and calls from our patron members, our paid subscribers across all three of those platforms, Patreon, Substack, or Locals. You also get Movie Club live streams as well as full ad-free replays of every live stream the day after it airs. So that's a convenient feature that people really like. If you miss a show, and you want to watch it back without ad interruptions, you get to do that the day after we send out a link with a video of the full stream uploaded front to back, uncensored and uncut, with no ad interruptions. So membership is just $5 a month or $50 a year if you sign up at Locals or Substack, and that helps tremendously. You guys are the backbone of the show. You keep it going, and so thank you very much for your support. The Peopled Infinite says, that's his mother. I like him. First Pizza Hut, now this. Ever the Starfucker, eh, Keaton? Say through Russell LMAO. Ha ha. Just kidding, boys. You're both still the best. Free Palestine. Thank you, Peopled Infinite. Appreciate that. Oh, that's whose mother? Oh, Mira Nair. Yeah. I said that's pretty cool that it's his mother. Just started the show. It's hilarious to see the Republicans teabag the Dems by going after minimum wage. If Hawley's willing to do 15, then that means it should be realistically 25. Thank you for that. Back from the road. Appreciate that very much. Okay, the Peopled Infinite says, got half a mind to take my DJ drone to L.A. It's only an hour and 20 minutes away, but I fear it might get shot out of the sky by a rubber bullet. Stay cool, y'all. Thank you, Peopled Infinite. Greta Voice. This electricity you're shocking me with better be green, you bastards. Thank you, Get Up King. Appreciate that. Oops, that's why that's slow.
That actually was surprisingly not bad.
Yeah, it's kind of hard.
That's a tough voice to do.
It is a tough voice to do. It's a tough accent, for sure. It's always a conservative boomer tactic to call you angry, as if it's immoral to be angry at the murder of children or denial of health care. You're goddamn right I'm angry. Right on, China Shell. I just want to put this out there. Disavow lies and slander coming out of these dummies' mouths. I welcome our new AI and Palantir overlords. Thank you for that. Okay.
How much are they paying you to say these things?
Yeah. I guess Misty's last show was taken down for legal reasons. No, it's still up there. But I'm glad I saw it. I learned something about myself being autistic. I'm thankful I learned about rigid morality, and that is not just me. No, we didn't take it down. It's still up there. It's on Rumble. Yeah.
It's there.
We didn't do anything with it. By the way, speaking of all this Palantir talk, Misty's guest tomorrow, she just posted, is going to be Derek Brose, who's a great guest to talk about Palantir. He's of the Conscious Resistance. He's done work with Whitney Webb and Unlimited Hangout, as well as The Last American Vagabond. So that's going to be a great show tomorrow, 8 p.m. Eastern, only on Rumble. So yes, make sure you are subscribed to our Rumble channel so you follow that. That's going to be really good. Really, really psyched that she has Derek Brose, excuse me, coming on as her guest. So you're telling me Russell's a subscriber to SouthBronxBabes.com. Boy, I guess we have a commonplace given my luck at ScarboroughSweeties.net to neighborhood in Toronto. FYI, thank you for that. China Shell, he's right. I do hate it. This Invest America shit is slavery and evil. The final death nail of Social Security. It's just Social Security, but shittier. Exactly. That's what they want to replace the Social Security with. That was a George W. Bush idea. Age-old scheme.
Yep.
Coming
Private
from a
retirement accounts.
Exactly. Coming from a wealthy family, the gifts appreciated most are personal or creative gifts. Bonus if made by you. Rich are defined by materialism and noticing something unique about them. Eric Husseau, invest in capitalism. If you don't need health care, children, education, food, and housing until 25, you'll get the You're Still Alive bonus. There you go. Good call. Everything under heaven is in chaos. The situation is excellent. China Shell says the mobster also call the people they steal from earners. That's right, because they know deep down they don't earn a cent themselves. That's right. Good observation, China Shell. Appreciate that very much. Dwayne Vogel says, hey, Russ, did you ever get the chance to ride Buffalo's Metro Rail?
I did. Their public transportation is pretty good. Just like a lot of small cities that don't have a lot of people, it pretty much shuts down like after midnight.
Right. Angel Garza says Trump has no mandate. 50% of voters will always hate him. Now trust in the Latino community, the second largest voting bloc, is lost. 26 is coming fast. I hope you're right about that, Angel. I just am saying that he comes into this with more wind at his back than, say, like the anti-BLM people did, because the polling was so one-sided in favor of that movement. But I hope you're right. Baby UBI, bold conservative strategy, Cotton. Thank you. Appreciate that. All right. Okay, folks. So we've seen it discussed that, one of the big stories that got pushed out of the news cycle by these LA riots, of course, Palantir is one of them. The Elon Trump falling out is one of them. But the one that really got pushed out of the news cycle was the travel ban, the full travel ban on 12 countries and the partial travel ban on 7 more. But as the Times reports here, Haiti reels as Trump severs a lifeline. So the implications of this travel ban are quite dire for a lot of people, especially sick children in this case. Sick children, families, and businesses are among the many people in Haiti, a country plagued by gang violence, likely to be hit hard by a U.S. travel ban. Born in northeast Haiti with a heart defect, Brad Mertens Joseph is 6, has difficulty walking, and is still in diapers. His parents, accustomed to a dangerous 9-hour overnight bus ride to see cardiologists in the country's violent capital, had finally found the solution to their son's medical ailment caused by a hole in his heart. It involved open heart surgery in Akron, Ohio, arranged by a nonprofit. Those plans collapsed this week when President Trump issued an order banning people from a dozen countries, including Haiti, who don't already have valid travel visas, from entering the United States. When I heard that, I was really upset, and I wondered, what are we going to do? The boy's father, Dillon Joseph, said, I was panicking, and I'm still panicking. Brad does not receive the surgery. If Brad does not receive the surgery, he is not likely to live past 30, said Dr. John Clark, a pediatric cardiologist at Akron Children's Hospital, who was set to treat the boy this summer. More than 300 other Haitians, mostly children, are on waiting lists for surgery and are now unable to get treatment because they are barred from traveling to the United States, said Owen Robinson, the executive director of International Cardiac Alliance, a nonprofit group based in the U.S. that arranged for Brad's treatment in Ohio. Finding enough doctors and hospitals in other countries to make up for the sudden loss will be extraordinarily difficult. If we could, we would, Mr. Robinson said. Haitian Hearts, an organization in Illinois, was hoping to secure travel for Susie Lapierre, 46, who had cardiac surgery in the United States 21 years ago and needs a valve replaced. She is unemployed, was forced to flee her home in Port-au-Prince, the capital, because of gang violence, and with most hospitals in the capital closed, is out of any other options for her heart problem. In announcing the ban, Mr. Trump said he had decided to, quote, fully restrict people from Haiti because visitors from there overstayed their visas at least 25% of the time. Mr. Trump's proclamation said the Secretary of State could issue travel waivers in cases that were in the national interest of the United States. Asked to clarify if that could apply to children with medical conditions, the U.S. Department of Homeland Security offered a statement that did not answer the question. President Trump's action to limit the entry of foreign nationals from countries who have significant terrorist presence, inadequate screening and vetting processes, and high visa overstay rates will help secure the American homeland and make our communities safer, Assistant Secretary Tricia McLaughlin said in the statement. The State Department said in the statement that there could be case-by-case waivers, but added that it would not get into hypotheticals or specific cases about application of the president's order. The Trump administration also rescinded an immigration designation known as temporary protected status that shielded more than 500,000 Haitians from deportation and revoked a program that had allowed more than 200,000 Haitians to move to the United States. So that was a few months ago, what they are referring to. And this is a story out of South Florida. A Haitian parolee family fears deportation as 3-year-old undergoes chemo in Miami. So here's an NBC report that they posted to their TikTok channel.
From Haiti, praying they're not deported. A family of 5 from Haiti praying they're not deported. The man's sister is their sponsor. She's a U.S. citizen, does not want to be identified, and facing reality.
The kids kind of very scared. They want to know, like, Tati, are we going to really leave? You cannot lie to children. They will always remember. Just like I promised them I will bring them here, and I did. So no, I don't want to give them false promises.
Adding to the family's anxiety of going back to a war zone is a leukemia diagnosis for their youngest. The 3-year-old is undergoing chemotherapy.
So it's scary. She has to get chemo every week, and this is going to take like 2 years. She go to Haiti, he's dead.
The family came under the CHNV program, which specifically deals with immigrants from Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela. The goal was to deter illegal crossings and create a legal path into America for people from those countries. Under the Biden administration, some 500,000 people were paroled into America. The Trump administration is terminating the program. The president insists CHNV is not working and not benefiting America in any way. Thousands of immigrants, many here in South Florida, are in the same situation. They found out over the weekend they have 30 days to leave the country.
Be able to give them this opportunity to have, just like somebody did for me, I was able to do for them. So it just kind of made me very happy. But now to see that thing taking away, it's very stressful.
The clock on this one started ticking today. And so people who are here on parole have until April 24 to take some sort of action. The Trump administration's advice to those people is to self-deport and then get back on the list to come back to America again legally. This is something that the folks here at the Little Haiti Cultural Complex are paying close attention to. Live in Little Haiti, I'm Steve Litz, NBC6 News.
Okay, so that was a report on March 26th, which would have made the 30-day deadline, as he says in the report, April 24th. I searched far and wide for a follow-up to that report to see what happened to that family and could find none, which could be a function of the fact that they did not provide their information. You see they were blurred out of the TV footage. It could be a function of the fact that they were deported, or both. If I had to guess, I would say both, unfortunately, and tragically. These are some of the third worlders, by the way, that Matt Walsh, Charlie Kirk, and Jack Posobiec say we have to keep out of the country, whether they're here legally or illegally, whether they are parolees or not, whether they have arrangements for medical treatments that they can't get in the countries that they live in. Children who cannot live past 30 unless they get a treatment that was arranged by charity groups to take place here in the U.S. These are some of the third worlders that these lovely people think should be kept out.
To be fair, it's not really what they think. It's what they were paid to type.
Well, in that case, it's what they're paid to type. But in the case of the rank and file, that's what you've been tricked into thinking. You've been tricked into thinking that these people pose a threat. Again, it's the same narrative over and over again. This is why I say this about the Trump years. The ultimate irony to me is that these years feel more like the Bush years than any time since the Bush years, where there is just this hegemonic climate of paranoia and fear directed at the other, the outside group. And the implications of that are far and wide beyond what they want to tell you about. You don't see stories about this very often. You don't see stories about kids in Haiti who have arrangements to get life-saving medical treatment here or who are going to be denied that now because they can't come into the country because there's a full travel ban. They ask the State Department, hey, what about this case? They give them a copy pasta answer. Well, when it's in the national interest of the United States to let some people in, we might do that. Well, is that kid's heart in the national interest of the United States? Probably not, according to this United States government and our sabotage of Haiti going back, a couple hundred years now. So, yeah, it's a horrible story. And it's important, I think, that these stories get out there because so much of the conversation is dominated by such a narrow spectrum of cases, right? When they talk about a travel ban, they're talking about banning people from countries where there is risk of them bringing violence and crime into the country. We know, this is a long-established fact, immigrants commit violent crimes at much lower rates than the native-born population for pretty obvious reasons. They're coming here because they want a better life. They're not coming. They could commit crime in their home country. They don't have to come here to commit crime. If they want a life of crime, it's easier to commit crime in their home country than it is to come in here. So that's obvious.
And also you're trying to stay off the radar while you're going to commit crime.
Also, you're trying to become part of this new place. So yes, why would you do that? And so that is just an absolutely horrible story, and it's an overlooked consequence of these kinds of very draconian nationalist policies that you certainly won't see emphasized by the info. See, they don't get paid to tell stories like that. They don't get paid to tweet that out.
Well, the people who govern us and the people who benefit most from our system have a vested interest in appealing to the lowest common denominator and the worst instincts in the body politic. And that's what all of this does. It puts people in a constant state of anger and finger pointing at everyone except the people who really benefit from this system. And that's why they manipulate you to hate the other, to hate the immigrant, to hate your neighbor. And hey, man, on the liberal side, that's hating working class people, hating men. Oh, yeah, it's men, it's male. I said the whole time that was really at its height. So what do you think's going to happen with like male voters with you being so charming to that Democrat, that represents a lot of people? Like, do you mistake the people from your university who are willing to debase themselves going along with that because they think it's the only way they can get laid? Do you think most men are that way, that they're going to go along with that? But what was the purpose of it? To get all these men to go in this direction. That was the whole point of it. They'll kick you from this side and they'll kick you from that side. We need, as a people, to be better than this. We need to envision a world where people like Elon Musk, people like Mark Andreessen, people like Donald Trump are not in charge of things anymore. And that goes back to that famous quote that we both always forget who it originated with. To imagine the end of capitalism is harder than to imagine the end of the world. It's people can't even think beyond this paradigm. I will say this, I'm still skeptical of completely centralized state governed systems of command economic control. But on the other hand, clearly this system is not reformable anymore, if it ever was. You have got to imagine a completely different economic arrangement. And even if on philosophical grounds you don't agree with that, on technological grounds, you better start agreeing with it quick, because the basic premise of the need for labor is evaporating very, very quickly. You'll see people say, No, AI, they're overestimating what it is. It doesn't have, we're so far from AGI, artificial general intelligence. That's irrelevant. That's irrelevant. Clearly, it can do the things they say it can do. We've experimented with it. It can do it. It's not, it doesn't matter how it's doing it. It's doing it. What that means is white collar work is about to go the way of a lot of blue collar work. It's going to be pared down to a bare minimum of things that they can't do that way. What do you think they're going to do when they don't need you? Create universal basic income in a world where they've had Palantir suck up all of your information and they could just push a button and destroy you, where they're going to weaponize the Patriot Act, as anyone who was paying attention at the time that they passed it said would eventually happen. Well, under this, you could just lock anybody up indefinitely without trial by calling them a terrorist. All it's going to require is the will to do that. And if there's ever been a bunch of people who have that will, it's these people. We need to come together in solidarity and break outside of this paradigm. But it's very difficult because just like the corporate media had control of all the platforms, well, now these people who clearly, as we demonstrated to you, are getting paid to define the conversation, just like the corporate media. They're getting paid to tell you what to argue about and what to think and what parameters within which to have the conversation. It's going to be very difficult to break the people who thought they got out of that kind of control, to convince them that they just ran back into that same control with a different phase. We're going to have to convince people of that in order to have a real conversation about what to do. The only advantage we have is there are more of us than there are of them. But the only way to really leverage that advantage is we have to stop talking all this fucking nonsense and talk about how we actually overthrow this system.
There you go. All right. Skyman 2204 says $1,000 right off the bat. Sounds like a lifelong social credit plan that'll either go up or down depending on how you invest your time and behavior. The Yuppies, thanks for the $5. Can't believe that the Uber New York Times story mentioned Gloucester, Massachusetts. That's where I'm from. Just so the guys at Palantir know. Thank you, Yuppies. Appreciate that. Boys, from the Greta story, hundreds and hundreds of boats should replace the Madeleine. Well, there's a foot caravan, too, that's going up towards the border now, too, through Egypt.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we'll have more on that. What's up with all these Proud Boys so obsessed with wearing something called a gaiter out in the streets of L.A. in June, grabbing young men? Yeah, are the Proud Boys out on the streets? I have heard that.
Are they?
If Uber is guilty of anything, it's perhaps caring too much. Thank you.
I mean, with the love of the village people, it should be no surprise that they're starting to grab young men.
Yes. Easy on Rogan. He's the Forrest Gump of podcasting. Thank you. What's your thoughts on the Duran brothers, Alex and Alexander, glazing an obvious MAGA psyop like Robert Barnes? I think Robert Barnes is part of the AJ psyop crew. He poo-pooed Whitney Webb. I don't know. Like I said, I have time to watch our friends. I don't have time to watch anybody else, so I have to plead ignorance on that. But thank you, though, for that. So was QAnon really Palantir all along? Yes, that's right. That's a good way to think of it. Thank you, Eric Cuso. The Israeli guys at the canceled their Israeli summit in Dallas. They're claiming Islamic Jihad is in Texas. Shapiro and Loomer agree. Interesting. Y'all really helped me out several months ago after being evicted following an electric fire. Lived in my car the last few months and found a place with people. Just given 24 hours to vacate. So I'm sorry to hear that, Blank State. I know you posted your link on there, your fundraising link, and good luck with that. I'm glad you were helped out the last time. I got in a fight with a delivery robot in Madison, Wisconsin, trying to block it until it let out a distress siren, and I let it go. Thank you, Stoop Sign. All right, we got one more?
Yeah, man. I mean, it's not a long piece.
All right, let's do it.
You know? And it definitely fits the themes of the day. So this is a funny meme about a certain kind of story that you see all too often in this hellscape of a country. Every heartwarming human interest story in America is like, he raised $20,000 to keep 200 orphans from being crushed in the orphan crushing machine.
Right.
And then never asks why an orphan crushing machine exists or why you'd need to pay to prevent it from being used. Yes, this is kind of coming out of that genre. This is from a local station in Lexington, Kentucky, about an 80-year-old who went back to his old high school job of bagging groceries to pay off his late wife's medical bills.
Hello, Gary. Anyone who goes to the Smith's Market on Bluff in St. George knows Gary Sailing, the kind 80-year-old bagger. Gary first worked as a grocery bagger back in high school in California. He never expected to pick it up again at this age. His life's work was in architecture.
Now, was she pretty or what?
And his love was his wife, Carol. They met at a stoplight back in 1991.
The exact instant we both raised our sunglasses at the same moment.
Turned out they had been going to the same store to pick up coffee for decades. And when the wife of the store's owner found out,
she comes around the corner and she's crying. And she goes, "Gary, are you telling me you finally ran into Carol?" We fell in love with each other on the bench because we ended up sitting there for 3 hours.
that love lasted right through January 2017 when Carol, an artist, was diagnosed with sundowner syndrome, a form of dementia. They moved to be near a neurologist in southern Utah.
The neurology was covered by Medicare. What wasn't covered was the promise that I kept, that I would keep her at home.
Carol died in 2021, but Gary's love for her lives on. Unfortunately, so do the medical bills. Gary still owes $80,000.
I saw Gary bagging groceries and I thought, what's this guy? Why is this elderly man still here?
Duana Johnson runs a small ministry in town. She organized the Gary Sailing donation account at the State Bank of Southern Utah that people can donate to. There's also a Venmo account.
So we started a fundraiser and people have been messaging saying that they see him all the time and they really love him. He's always nice, he's always kind, he's always like, you know, greeting them and smiling.
There is no way I'm a hero. I am not an angel, and I'm certainly not a saint. I made the promise to keep her at home and never put her in a nursing home because I took vows.
So you look at how people react to this story. And what do? They donate. They say, why is this guy bagging groceries? I do not believe, I guess I'm a little more of a Rousseau, and Keaton is more of a pessimist, maybe more of a Kafka. I believe people are basically community oriented. I think it's part of our inheritance as primates. Not that there are not elements of, you know, fighting and jostling for status that also comes with that evolutionary inheritance. But I think people are basically wired for empathy and community. And I think that this system warps people's better natures into shapes that I don't think they would go in under better circumstances. And you can see it when you travel outside of America. I've always said, you leave America, it's like you see it America has bad juju. You go other places, people are much less stressed because they have health care, they have education. You know, those things send a signal to you from your society that you're part of a community. And that's going to make you less inclined to approach people when you meet them face to face, like this is a potential competitor for resources, because you feel like the basic resources you need to survive are being provided by that community. That has an impact on how you live in the world. When you live in a culture, when you live in a society that's telling you you're on your own, you're going to act like that. But it's not healthy and it's not natural to our species. So if you look at something that is unique to this country, certainly in the industrialized world and pretty much in the entire world, the vast numbers of people who have medical debt, 8% of people in the country, this is as of 2021, a big study was done, 8% of people had medical debt. And as you would expect, the worse your health is, the more likely you are to have medical debt. So 20% of people whose health would be described as poor have medical debt. That's barbaric. That's barbaric. Why should that be? We've been so conditioned to think in this very sick way about society and the obligations we have to the other members of society that we take that as like common sense, right? Like, yeah, no, well, of course they're in poor health, so of course they have more medical debt. Why is that acceptable? Why is that acceptable? Even the people in fair health, 14%. If you have a disability, 13% of people with a disability, why don't we take care of those people? Why would we put somebody, you're already burdened with a disability, and you put them in the position where they have to worry about paying off debt? 20 million people, nearly 1 in 12 adults, owe medical debt. The survey suggests people in the United States owe at least $220 billion in medical debt. Approximately 14 million people, 6% of adults in the U.S., owe over $1,000 in medical debt, and about 3 million, 1%, owe medical debt of more than $10,000. While medical debt occurs across demographic groups, people with disabilities or in worse health, lower income people, and uninsured people are more likely to have medical debt. This is the population that the GOP wants to impose a $1 trillion cut to Medicaid and food stamps on. For what? For what? A tax cut that is going to primarily benefit the richest 20% of people in society. 68% of those tax cuts that they are shaking everyone in the nation upside down for loose change in order to secure, most of it goes to the richest 20%. We've shown this many times. The top 1% of earners would get $78,000 in tax cuts, an amount of money that if you're in the top 1%, you wouldn't even notice $78,000, which that's something to question as well. Why do people who wouldn't notice $78,000 exist in a country where this many people are drowning in medical debt, where you got a fucking poor 80-year-old guy bagging groceries to pay off his medical debt? Why does that even exist? You're not supposed to ask those questions. The function of people like Jack Posobiec, the function of people like Matt Walsh, the function of people like Charlie Kirk is to brainwash you into thinking that it makes you a better person to not give a fuck about that and to not imagine a better world than one where that guy has to bag groceries. Well, it's the way it is. I should have saved up. Should have better insurance. Shouldn't have kept the wife at home. Why did he didn't have to do that? One more meme. Heartwarming. This 2-year-old's family couldn't afford his $20,000 electric wheelchair and their insurance didn't cover it. So a high school robotics team burned down the insurance headquarters. That's how those memes should really go. So yeah, just that caught my eye. That's not going to get any coverage beyond that local market. And in fact, I didn't show the slide. I want to give them credit for their work. That is WKYT out of Lexington, Kentucky. But yeah, just an absolutely horrible story. And he's not alone, as we saw. People all over this country, elderly people, have to live what should be their golden years drowning in debt. That is a failed system. And the system is not failing because of the immigrants. Did the immigrants create our medical system? No, they did not. Did they put a lot of these people who are in medical debt? Did they create insurance plans with such high deductibles that if you get sick, even though you've been paying for insurance, you lose your house? Did people from Honduras create that system? No. They are telling you to worry about the people from Honduras in order not to question that system and not to direct your anger where it should go, at the people who do benefit from that system, who uphold that system, and who created that system. Your enemy is not the immigrants. Your enemy is mostly the people telling you to worry about the immigrants.
Yeah, and speaking of immigrants, we didn't get to do this week because there was just so much. But there was that clip on CNN that went somewhat viral of Scott Jennings versus that young woman who's running for Congress,
Right.
where, she's saying that she thinks that, people who are here even illegally should have access to Medicaid. And he has this big shit-eating grin on his face. Like, you're saying illegals should get Medicaid? Illegals should get... Like, once again, people are brainwashed to not look beneath the surface of what he's saying. On the surface, they think, well, yeah, these people are cheating the system, and so they shouldn't be cheating the system. There should be no system to cheat, is the point.
Right.
If you go to Europe or any other developed country in the world and you get sick or you, God forbid, you have a heart attack while you're on vacation, let's say you, as a tourist, you get essentially free health care. Many places it's literally free. Some places you'll pay a nominal fee, but nominal. I mean, like in the hundreds of dollars tops. You could have a baby in Europe. It'll cost you a couple grand tops, even if you're there as a tourist, even if you're there with no documentation. Okay, so the idea that healthcare should run any other way, that is an American idea. That is a
unique to
uniquely
this
American
country.
system. Like, we are the crazy ones.
Right.
If an illegal immigrant calls the police, do the cops come and say, what's your immigration status? Oh, you're here illegally, so we're either going to have to not deal with your emergency or we'll deal with it and then we'll send you a bill because you're not... No.
Exactly.
It's a public service. You call the cops, they come, they do what you need them to do. Fire department, same thing. Healthcare works the same way in every other developed country on earth. There's no system where, we're paying into the system. We got to make sure these people don't take from it. No, it's a public service. It's a public service. That's the way it is everywhere else in the world. We're the crazy ones. We're the insane ones. And within the context of this country, the crazy ones are the people who want to keep it this way, not the people who want to change it, not the people who say, yeah, undocumented immigrants should get health care. Yeah, they should get health care along with everybody else, including people who are here on vacation, people who are here who are studying here. That should not matter. Should not matter. That's not crazy at all. That's the way every other developed country on earth does it. And we're brainwashed into thinking that not only should it not be that way, but it can't be that way. That's impossible.
Yep. We are not going to be able to improve our lives in this country until people wake up to the reality of this system, until they wake up to the fact that the people with the biggest megaphone are the people who are least qualified to speak and who are most determined to destroy the vast majority of people in this country in order to benefit their own criminal class.
Yep. Well said. All right, folks, we're going to take a quick word from 1775 Coffee. Still haven't tried 1775 Coffee? Well, now's your shot. The 1775 starter kit just dropped, only 1,000 units. You're getting the bold dark roast that hits harder than a CNN fact check, the smooth medium roast, and the Vitality mushroom coffee for clean energy and laser focus with no crash. All single origin, small batch, toxin-free, and mold-free. Plus, you're also getting a gold spoon clip, because freedom isn't scooped with plastic. A frother strong enough to stir up your coffee and your mother-in-law's political opinions. And, of course, a black 1775 tumbler that says, I don't take life advice or caffeine from a woke sea witch. $170 worth of coffee and gear. Yours for just $99. This is a limited edition set for the ones who have been watching 1775 blow up on Rumble, wondering if it's actually worth it. Spoiler, it is. So go to 1775coffee.com/studio and grab your starter kit before they're gone. Bold beans, clean fuel, and a morning routine that stands for something, just like Rumble does. So start your day with coffee that actually backs what you believe. Okay. Let's go do some Rumble rants here. All of us have jobs and just trying to get by. They took me in to help pack and move, but still don't have a place to go. Any help is appreciated. Thank you. Blank state. Pardon me. Thank you for that, and best of luck to you, my friend. Out of the pan and into the fire, says Noah Goop. Appreciate that. Republicans have felt since Obama that we live in the Turner Diaries, where it's legal to commit crime against white people if you're black, brown. That's what they don't say, and do a crime in their home. Thank you, China Shill. Hey, Keaton, are you listening to Russell? AI could do Greta impression now. Yeah, probably could. Thank you.
It probably could.
Gopnik Otaku, thanks for the £5. You know, Russ, you just may have given me an epiphany. Being Romanian, I have a bit of aversion to communism, but if it's going to be AI or us, ... There you go. Stam as I am, when you see where it's been, where it is, and where it's going, could it get any more fucking depressing? Priority 1 must be focused on mutual aid to reduce suffering to come. Join and plan with allies now. Thank you, Sam as I am. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Thanks to our YouTubers. Thank you to our Rumblers. Thanks to the mods for keeping the peace in the chat. We're back Thursday at noon. Great Misty Winston show tomorrow with Derek Bros from The Last American Vagabond.
Do not
Unlimited
miss it.
Hangout and Conscious Resistance. Yeah, that's going to be a great show. They're going to do a deep dive on all the Palantir stuff. So that's going to be fantastic. So make sure you tune in. That is on Rumble only. So make sure you're following us on Rumble. We will drop clips. I imagine we'll drop that full interview on YouTube at a later date, but it'll be streamed live tomorrow on Rumble exclusively. So make sure you head over there, dudissidents.com/Rumble, and hit that follow button so you can watch the Misty Winston show live tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Eastern. And then we are back at noon Eastern on Thursday. Until then, thanks very much, everybody, for spending the afternoon with us. Always a pleasure to see you. Be safe and be well.
Courage!
Please clap.